meeting. Okay, I'd like to bring the finance meeting to order. So first thing, before we approve the agenda, I'd like to amend the agenda to include a short presentation from Patty Fisher. Patty is the American Farm Bureau Promotion and Education Committee Chair. And I'd like to put that after our COVID-19 update. Would anybody like to approve that? Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Denisha. Then Mr. Reagan. Any discussion? All those in favor of the amended agenda, please say aye or put your hand up.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Approval of the minutes for February 22nd. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. So for our COVID-19 update, first up, I believe Jolene Munger, please. Jolene, are you with us? Hi.
Hello. Okay. So, share my screen. Okay, so for our update for today, as of today, we have 6,529 cases to date. We have 4 current hospitalizations today, 64 active cases, and 6,372 have completed isolation. We do have 93 cumulative deaths since March 2020. Our daily hospitalizations are continuing to decrease, which is great for the region. Today is our lowest number that we have had with the 4. And we are no longer reporting out on weekends for our daily cases, and just going to that on Monday to Friday due to our decrease in the cases. So with 1 day remaining in the case, we have 6 cases today, so 41 total cases so far for the week, with tomorrow being the last day in the reporting week. Our average new cases, daily cases per week, is at 5.8 for a 6-day average. Last week we were at 11.6 for the 7-day average. This week for school cases, we have had 8 so far, whereas we had 7 last week. We still have tomorrow, but that does include students and staff. For the weekly college cases, we only had 2 this week, which is a nice decline from where we were in February, and it has continued to go down, so 2 so far. And then with isolation and quarantine, we currently have 64 people on active isolation and 370 in mandatory quarantine, and 28,852 people have been through the isolation and quarantine process in the county, so as of today. One thing I do want to mention is that on Friday, the CDC did update their guidance to reflect new evidence for physical distance in the classrooms. So the CDC is recommending that in elementary schools that the distance go to at least 3 feet in classroom, with mask use is universal regardless of community transmission. And then in middle and high schools, they are recommending at least 3 feet where the transmission is low, moderate, or substantial. And then where transmission is high, to be at least 6 feet apart. New York State Department of Health is currently reviewing this guidance, and we do expect to hear from them with the guidance this week. But as of right now, the Department of Health has not made a ruling on the CDC guidance. Within the schools, the CDC continues to recommend 6 feet of distance between adults in the school building. So adult to adult is 6 feet, and adult and students should also be 6 feet. Any place that is a common area, such as school lobbies or auditoriums, should also be 6 feet. When masks can't be worn, such as eating, so in cafeterias, it should be 6 feet. And then during any activities where increased exhalation occurs, including singing, shouting, band practice, sports, and or exercise, and any community settings outside of the classroom. And then, so for the transmission rates, for the CDC transmission rates, this is a current map of the state. Last week, we were in substantial and we just moved to moderate, but as you can see, our surrounding counties are still elevated as well. So the state also, in their executive order 202.98 issued yesterday, which is effective today, allows indoor fitness classes to operate with restrictions, and also allows the non-essential private gatherings to have a maximum of 10 or fewer individuals, up to 25 individuals outdoors. And then it permits events, arts, and entertainment venues to reopen at up to 33% capacity, with up to 100 people indoors and 200 people outdoors, or up to 150 people indoors and up to 500 people outdoors if all attendees present proof of a negative COVID test. And this is effective April 2nd. So the indoor classes are effective today, and the events are effective April 2nd. And then I do have a graph, and I understand that this table might be difficult to read, but I can send it around to the legislators. It nicely details the different gatherings, what the last change was, any effective dates, and if there was an executive order, if it was just announced at a press briefing by the governor. So the ones with the gym and fitness, the social gatherings, those were from today, and then also the indoor and outdoor limits with events, arts, and entertainment venues. So for our vaccine distribution, so far for first doses, we have administered 3,392 and then 1,047 second doses. This last week, we were in Canton at SLU for first doses on the 19th and second doses on the 20th. This week, we are in Ogdensburg tomorrow for first doses. And then on Thursday, we will also be in Messina for first doses at the St. Lawrence Center Mall Sports Complex. And we'll be doing second doses there as well. And then Friday, we will be at Governor Hospital doing second doses, and then at Messina Hospital on Saturday doing second doses as well. So one new thing for the vaccine is beginning tomorrow, March 23rd, individuals 50 plus will be able to get the vaccine regardless of any employment eligibility. And you can sign up today. So we do have that clinic tomorrow in Ogdensburg. So anybody that is 50 plus that was not previously eligible that would like to get the vaccine, if you go to the county website, you can sign up for our clinic there, or you can also go to the state site, and pharmacies can now do anybody 50 years older, comorbidities, and teachers and childcare workers at pharmacies. So I just wanted to re-include from last week's new eligibility, the public-facing government and public employees, the not-for-profit workers who provide public-facing services to New Yorkers, and essential in-person public-facing building service workers and providers of essential building service. Also, I wanted to reiterate the comorbidities that are eligible. So heart conditions, cancer, chronic lung disease, pregnancy, diabetes, weakened immune system, any neurological conditions, obesity, brain diseases, liver disease, developmental disabilities, chronic kidney disease, and sickle cell disease. And if you aren't sure, if you call your primary care provider with any questions about your health conditions, they will be able to tell you if you fit one of the categories that would make you eligible for the vaccine. So even after you receive your vaccine, you still want to make sure that you are wearing your mask and you're washing your hands and you are socially distanced. That is it for myself. So I'm going to stop and turn it over to Dr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So thank you, Jolene, for that. So I just wanted to quickly go over U.S. trends, because I think they're relevant. If you look at what's happening nationally, as far as new cases per day, we had a very dramatic decrease, then a slight plateau, but then we do seem to be continuing to go down in the number of new cases, which is excellent news. If you look at things overall, we still have had nearly 30 million cases, but we have a 9% decrease in the past 14 days. We've had well over 500,000 deaths, but the death rate has decreased by nearly 40% in the last 14 days. And then the number of hospitalized has also decreased. So on a national level, all of these trends are very favorable. If you look at what's happening in the North Country region, so those are the 7 counties that we're part of, for new cases per day, it's a pretty similar trend, nice steady downward. At this point, we're at about 12 new cases per day per 100,000 people, and this is in the region. And again, if you look at the region, if you look at test percent positivity, we're all the way down at 1.5%. As we've talked about in St. Lawrence County, because we do a lot of testing with the colleges and the hospitals, this test percent positivity isn't as meaningful, but when you look at it on a regional level, I think it's helpful. As far as the variants, I think it's important to understand what we currently know. So we currently know that there are multiple variants. There are the 3 primary ones, the UK, the Brazilian one, and the South African one. As people are aware, there are actually many more variants, but those are the 3 variants of greatest concern. We also know that these variants tend to develop if the virus is allowed to replicate in the community at a high rate. We know that the UK variant, the B1117, is the most common in the US, and that's what I'm going to focus on. We also know that it's more contagious, and I think it's a little bit more clear, unfortunately, that it's also more deadly. The good news is that all 3 vaccines which are currently being used in the US do provide protection. So as far as what we don't know about the variants, probably one of the more important questions is, where are the variants in the US? And what this map shows is not where the variants are, but just where is the testing happening. So in order to know where the variants are, you have to test for them. And as I've talked about, regular tests don't search out these variants. You have to do specialized testing. And what you can see is that some states, like, for whatever reason, Maine, the darker blue, the more testing they're doing. But even the darker blue states, they're testing around 5% of their samples to identify whether these variants are present. Then the most important question is, what's the real world impact on cases, on hospitalizations, and death from these variants? And, there's an interesting trend. So as we've seen an increasing number of the variants across the country, and this is specifically the UK variant, we're actually seeing a decreasing number of daily new cases. So I take this as encouraging, that even though we have the UK variant in increasing amounts, our cases still seem to be going down. If you look at what's happening by state, there are 2 states, so Michigan and Florida, that have the highest and second highest number of variants. So those states are like case studies to understand a little bit more about what the variants might be doing. The confusing thing about that is, if you look at Michigan, they've had an alarming uptick in their number of cases in the past little bit. So they actually have a 101% 14-day increase in cases. And when I was looking at this, I was concerned that this was because of the UK variant. But we have a sort of a built-in comparison state, which is Florida. And despite having the highest number of UK variants, their cases trended down and are still going down at this point. In the past 14 days, they've had a 16% decrease in cases. So the bottom line is, I don't think we can really honestly say what the impact of the variants are. I just don't think it's clear yet, but this is something that we're all going to keep our eyes on. One of the things that we do know is that the 5 pillars of prevention have had a significant impact. And I was going to use just the example of what's happened with seasonal influenza. The advantage of looking at seasonal influenza as sort of a proxy for the effectiveness of the 5 pillars is because we know what the annual trends tend to be with influenza, where we don't know what the annual trends are with COVID. The fairly remarkable thing is, if you look at this graph, so these are positive influenza cases in New York State by season. And if you look where the green arrow is, that was for the 2019 to 2020. And we're somewhere around 18,000 confirmed cases. And then you look back in 2017, sort of the same level, a little bit lower in 2018-19. If you look at the red arrow or the red line, that's what we've seen for seasonal influenza this past year. And I want to be clear that there are additional factors that make this dramatic difference. So health-seeking behaviors were different, testing patterns were different, but the magnitude of the difference, I think, is largely attributable to the 5 pillars of prevention. So, when we're talking about vaccination, what's the impact on larger scale? So if you look at a country that has done a high rate of vaccination, what you see is that their case rate is going down and is going down dramatically, and it's continuing to drop. If you look at other places, like a continent like Europe, where they have relatively low rate of vaccination for a variety of reasons, what you see is they're actually seeing an increase in cases. So what are we doing about vaccination locally? So Jolene talked about this a little bit. We've done nearly 60,000 vaccinations have been administered in this county. Of those, some of them are people who've completed their vaccine series, so that's more than 22,000. We have 35,000 people who've received at least one dose of the vaccine. And if you look at the entire population, including 16 and under who are not eligible for this vaccine, we vaccinated 32.7% of the population. Some of the data that's reported looks at the percentage of people who are above 16 who are eligible for vaccine, and that percentage would be higher. As people probably saw in the news, the SUNY Potsdam state site has actually vaccinated, has administered more than 50,000 vaccines, which is quite an accomplishment. If you look at where the vaccines are being administered in the county, so the hospitals did a lot of the early vaccination when we were focusing on healthcare workers. The local health department, as Jolene said, has done more than 3,600 vaccines. The pharmacies have done quite a bit of vaccination. The pharmacies are soon going to be able to vaccinate more groups of people, so I think that's going to help them. But again, if you look at the state site, that's where a tremendous amount of vaccination continues to occur. Probably the most important thing is to look at the age demographic graph. So what this demonstrates that if you look at the number of vaccinations by age group, that's the green bar is just the absolute number that have been administered, but the red or pink line actually represents the percentage of people in that age group who've been vaccinated. And what you see, 60, 69, 57% of that population has been vaccinated. If you look at the 70 to 79, which is one of the most vulnerable groups, 75% of that population has been vaccinated. And if you look at 80 plus, 68% of that group has been, and these are numbers for initial first vaccine. So it's very impressive, and it's really, we compare well to most of the state and the country. As far as the impact of this vaccination in St. Lawrence County, what I would tell you is that we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of emergency room visits. We've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of hospital admissions, as Jolene pointed out. And we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of deaths from COVID. So when you talk about the 5 pillars of prevention, which we continue to emphasize, so wearing a mask, physically distancing, hand hygiene, staying home if you're sick, and staying local, I think it's important to understand that there's sort of a new foundation upon which these pillars stand, and that's vaccination. So as we look about going forward, the vaccine is really going to be one of our key foundational strategies. So just to summarize, so overall we're seeing in the US and in St. Lawrence County, we're seeing cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are decreasing significantly. We know that the variants are becoming more prevalent. They are unfortunately more contagious and deadly, and we know that the variants develop when the virus is allowed to spread at high rates. We have a number of states with increasing numbers of cases, but I don't think that the role of variance is very well defined. It may be fueling what's happening in Michigan, but it's hard to explain what's happening in Florida at the same time. What we do know is that the 5 pillars of prevention work. They work for COVID, and their impact on influenza, I think, is a good proxy and a dramatic example. Vaccination, though, is the foundation, and it's really the most effective plan for the long term. And I just want to remind people that although we may feel like we're in the fourth quarter or the third period or the 10th round, it's really not time to declare victory. We don't want a rematch. We don't want to go into overtime. Vaccination, again, is, I think, our best play, and it's really our most powerful tool. So I really think we should make sure that everyone in the community is taking advantage of vaccination and really encourage people to go get vaccinated. And that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams. Does anyone have questions? Mrs. Haggard.
This would be for either Dr. Williams or Ms. Munger. This is Margaret, if you can't see me very well. Could you clarify for me what the rules should be in a meeting? Like, for example, this size with 11 people, what the CDC is recommending right now in terms of mask wearing, social distancing. I don't know how the vaccine enters into this, but I had a friend ask me why I had returned to the meetings, and I thought it was okay, but could you clarify the exact guidelines that we should be following here in this chamber?
Jolene, would you like to take that?
I would love to take that. So it is still recommended that you stay 6 feet apart at a minimum in an enclosed setting. And even if you are 6 feet apart, mask wearing is still recommended, especially for a longer time period due to the exposure, especially if you are speaking or potentially moving around. Ventilation does play a part. If you have the ability to open windows, that can help to increase airflow within the rooms. But it is still recommended that to do multiple pillars at the same time.
Thank you, Jolene. Are there any other questions? Mr. Denisha.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jolene, you had mentioned that it was one of the charts or graphs that you had shown earlier, and it was in regards to the rules for group gatherings. That you could send that around to us. Would you please do that? I would appreciate it very much.
I can do that right after this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Terminelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have spoken to quite a few people that are, and they're looking forward to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And I know several people that are traveling actually downstate. It seems like Syracuse is offering that. Do we have any indication as to when we can expect Johnson & Johnson in St. Lawrence County?
So the Johnson & Johnson that was at the state site was a one-time deal for the state site. They will not be getting it again. Currently, the Johnson & Johnson is on limited supply for the state. It has gone more federally to other states. And within New York State, we have been directed that it should be used for the homebound population and households as necessary. So that is how the Johnson & Johnson will be coming out. So I would recommend that anybody gets whatever vaccine is available when they're within their community currently.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smithers.
Thank you.
In regard to the chart that you showed on group gatherings, which Mr. Denisha referred to, and I believe it was Ms. Munger had this chart, you had as one of the criteria that people had been tested and shown to be negative. In lieu of that, I know a number of people that have had both shots, and if this has been greater than 2 weeks, would that be an acceptable substitute for a negative test for coronavirus?
So that is not currently part of the guidance. It's not to say that it won't become part of the guidance, but the current guidance right now is just the negative test.
Okay, thank you, Jolene. Anyone else? Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jolene. Dr. Williams, for your presentation. We thank you many times for your efforts. Just wanted to give a special thanks to the soldiers at Potsdam State. And again, thanks to all that are contributing, but a special thanks to the soldiers out there in Potsdam State. I've heard nothing but good things about the organization, how smoothly it works out there, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Arquette. Anyone else?
Still on it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Jolene. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So next up, I'd like to recognize Patty Fisher. Patty Fisher is a Madrid gal who is the chair of the American Farm Bureau Promotion and Education Committee. And we have a resolution that will appear later on in our agenda. Patty, would you take it away, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Akers. Thanks, everybody, for letting me have a few minutes of your time again this year. I remember last year, this was the last event I spoke at until we all had to stay at home for a little while because of COVID. So, yeah. So yes, I am Patty Fisher. I do live in Madrid. I am a member of the American Farm Bureau Promotion Education Committee. I actually just finished my term as chair last week, and we have a new chair, but I am still on the committee. I'm also a member of the New York State Farm Bureau Promotion Education Committee, where I represent District 7, which is St. Lawrence County, Franklin, Essex, and Clinton counties. My family owns a dairy farm in Madrid. My husband's sister, my 2 sons, and my brother-in-law all have ownership in the farm. My brother has worked with us for years, so it's truly a family farm. 98% of the farms in the US are family owned. I also have a background in education. I see some familiar faces here from that job. I semi-retired a couple years ago. I was a high school teacher, and then I transitioned to be an instructional coach. And when I semi-retired, I was supervisor of instructional technology at the BOCES. So the Promotion Education Committee to me is a really important thing. I believe in education. I believe in this time of so much information that information literacy is so important for our students. So I wanted to just start out by telling you a little bit about Farm Bureau in case you're not aware of it. It is a member-funded grassroots organization that is the voice for agriculture in Albany and Washington, D.C. They advocate for policy and issues that are important to farmers. As you can imagine, something that's really important on every farmer's mind right now is when will we be eligible to get the vaccine? Because keeping the cows milked has been a challenge in this time of COVID. Policy development starts at the grassroots, which is the county. Policy then moves on to the state level where counties work together to identify the policies that are most urgent and important in New York State. The states then work together at the national level, which is American Farm Bureau, on national policy and issues. So the president of St. Lawrence County Farm Bureau is John Greenwood. My husband, David, is president of New York State Farm Bureau. And the chair of the St. Lawrence County Promotion and Education Committee is Betsy Hodge. The Farm Bureau Promotion and Education Committee's purpose is to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers by providing tools and resources to farmers and our members so that they can speak to the public about the food that they produce. The average person is at least 2 generations removed from the farm. Less than 2% of the population produce the food for the rest of the 98%. At the county level, we have an activity each year. It's called a Day at the Farm. It's usually in September. It's held on a working dairy farm so that the public can visit the farm, talk to experts, and learn about how their milk is produced. Last year, of course, because of COVID, we did not have the event. We are really hopeful by this September, we'll be able to have an in-person event again. And we move it around the county to different areas so that everybody has an opportunity to come and visit. So we noticed during the pandemic that the public is more curious than ever about where their food comes from and how it's produced. We also realize that our consumers do not understand the food chain because let's face it, it's pretty complicated. There are days I really don't understand the food chain either and how food gets to the grocery store. In April, when our farm was dumping milk, it was confusing to the consumer because they saw grocery stores were limiting the number of gallons of milk a family could buy. A colleague of mine called, in an organization that he belonged to, wanted to do a milk drive. There was a lot of milk drives going on at that time, if you remember, and there still are some going on. They wanted to give away some milk. So he asked, could they come to our farm and buy our milk so we wouldn't have to dump it anymore? And I was really taken aback, I have to be honest, but I explained to him that we can't sell raw milk in New York State without all of the appropriate permits. It has to go to the processing plant. The public's interest in their food also comes from their concern about agriculture's impact on the environment. I'm going to show a short video, keep your fingers crossed that the technology works, how farmers and ranchers are reducing environmental impact. It was created by American Farm Bureau. The speaker is John Newton, Chief Economist at New York Farm Bureau. And I'm going to share my screen. I hope you can all see that.
Do you care about the environment? Listen up. Here's a quick report card on agriculture's impact. If you're concerned about the amount of land required to grow our food, guess what? The evolution of agriculture has changed everything. Going back to just 1990, farmers would have needed nearly 100 million more acres to harvest the same amount of corn, cotton, rice, soybeans, and wheat produced in 2018. That's roughly the size of the entire state of California. Because farmers need less land for crops, more land is being dedicated to conservation. Get this, farmers and ranchers have 140 million acres in voluntary federal conservation programs. That's equivalent to California and New York combined. Farmers and ranchers are doing more with less, which helps protect our land, air, and water. America's ag innovation is paying off big time. Globally, agriculture is responsible for around 24% of greenhouse gas emissions. But farmers here in the U.S. are leading the way, accounting for less than 10% of our country's emissions. That means agriculture's impact is far smaller than transportation, energy production, or industry. The truth is, America's farmers and ranchers have been shrinking their environmental footprint for 30 years. U.S. milk production has increased 71%, while per unit emissions have declined by almost 25%. Pork production has increased by 17%, yet per unit emissions have declined by more than 18%. And beef production has increased by 50%, but per unit emissions have fallen by nearly 8%. Now consider this. Farmers are trapping carbon in the soil through cover crops and new planting techniques. Combine this with the benefits of our forests and it more than offsets agriculture's direct emissions. So there you have it. America's farmers and ranchers are making great strides to take care of the earth while continuing to provide safe, healthy, affordable food for your family and mine.
So as you saw in the video, U.S. farmers have long been at the forefront of climate smart farming, utilizing scientific solutions, technology, and innovations to raise crops and care for our animals. These efforts are designed to protect soil and water, efficiently manage manure, produce clean and renewable energy, capture carbon, and improve sustainability. I think many people who come to our farm are amazed at the technology that they find there, not only in the barn where the cows are, but also in the equipment that does the planting and the harvesting. Agriculture is important to the New York State economy. It's also important to St. Lawrence County economy. There are 1,253 farms in St. Lawrence County per the 2017 Census of Agriculture. The market value of products sold per the same census was $191,077,000. There are a variety of ag-related career opportunities in St. Lawrence County. Of course, we always need people to work on the farm, from entry-level milkers to managers, but there are many other career opportunities in the ag field that we really need to make sure our students are aware of. In New York, we celebrate Ag Literacy Week. We celebrated last week. It was March 15th to the 19th. Volunteers across the state virtually read an ag accurate book. This year, the book was, I don't know if you can see it very well, Tales of the Dairy Godmother, Chuck's Ice Cream Wish. So it's about a dairy farm this year. And the New York Ag in the Classroom always creates activities to go with it. So if we could go in person into the classroom, which was pretty limited this year, if at all, there is an activity where the students would make ice cream using ice in a plastic bag and shaking and so forth. We're hoping next year for Ag Literacy Week, we're back in the classroom reading to the students. In St. Lawrence County, Farm Bureau buys the books. Cornell Cooperative Extension organizes all of the volunteer readers. And then the book is donated to each school's library. This week that we are in is National Ag Week. Tomorrow is National Ag Day. And usually there are many activities planned around the state to celebrate National Ag Day, many activities in Washington, D.C., but again, we're all virtual, so many of them have been put on hold. As a farmer, I would say every day is Ag Day. We all need to eat every day. When you can, visit a farm, come to our farm, ask good questions, expect good answers. Farmers sustainably care for their land, for their people, and for their animals. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patty. Mrs. Haggard.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher.
You're welcome.
That was a great presentation. I appreciate it. I just wanted to comment on something you said about employment. Having been a teacher myself, I have many students who are interested in agricultural jobs, and I understand that many of the farms, including yours in the Madrid area and Wyomington, employ students that I have, and I appreciate that. I think it's really important to continue that tradition in the area, and I'm really glad you brought that to our attention. I'd ask, how can we help you as a board to get the message out and support you in your endeavor?
That's a really good question. How can you support us as a board? Labor could be another whole presentation in itself, right? It's always difficult in many organizations. I think just awareness that working on a farm is more than milking a cow. There are many, many other opportunities. There are opportunities for people that have a GED. There are opportunities for people that have a high school diploma. There are opportunities for a 2-year, a 4-year, a master's degree. So I think just because we live in such a rural county, I'm always surprised at how much people don't know about ag. Field trips to the farm. Once we get back to in-person, we like to have kids come tour the farm. We had an event a couple years ago that we had guidance counselors, school counselors come to the farm and tour around so that they could see the opportunities that are there. So just awareness, I think, is a big thing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think, Mr. Reagan, go ahead.
Ms. Fisher, what's the name of the children's book that you had up on the screen for a second?
It's called Tales of the Dairy Godmother.
Tales.
Tales of the Dairy Godmother, Chuck's Ice Cream Wish. It's actually based on a farm in Maryland where they do make ice cream. It has really nice illustrations.
So the St. Lawrence County Farm Bureau has been in contact with the library system, particularly actually in Ogdensburg, for actually purchasing some books. There's a series of probably, I think there's about 11 choices. So we basically decided at the last meeting to spend $300 towards the purchase of some of these books. And this Dan Hotley and Brent Phillips are actually in charge of this, and they're gonna see this come to fruition, but they have been in contact with your library system in there. Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Yeah, I was just going to, as an aside, I'm involved with a youth service group in Ogdensburg, and one of the things they've been doing is reading children's books and making the videos available to the elementary schools that are using those videos as a way to reinforce the importance of reading. So I'll go on Amazon and get some copies and have my high school kids read them and make them available to the elementary schools as well.
I wonder, Patty, if you could make that video available to North Country Now, that maybe they would put it as a choice for somebody if they wanted to hit that link, that they could actually watch the video. Because I think the environmental story is one that farmers are constantly fighting. People actually really don't know what the ag industry has accomplished, in the last 30 years. So, Mr. Denisha has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patty, I was fortunate enough a couple of years ago to tour your farm with some of the students from the high schools and BOCES and the guidance counselors. It was very impressive, and I'm really glad that you were able to take the time to come and present to us this evening. And as Mr. Akers said, I'm certainly aware of how critical agriculture is to St. Lawrence County. But the thing that really struck me was on the video was that about only 8.5% of all greenhouse gases are emitted by farming operations. So I guess I can keep on eating my steak.
Yeah, we should.
But thank you.
Mr. Denisha does have an ice cream shop, though, that he's so. Okay, anyone else? Well, Patty, thank you. That's a wonderful presentation, and we really appreciate your efforts on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Can I add just one quick thing?
Certainly.
Back to the question about what the board could do. I don't know if the board could help this at all, but we noticed a few years ago, funding for ag education went down in our public schools. We didn't have enough ag teachers. We still don't have enough ag teachers. We still don't have enough ag programs in schools. So funding to help public schools get ag programs back, I think, is very critical also to help us out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Haggard has a follow-up.
Okay.
Mrs. Fisher, we have in St. Lawrence County, and to help me out with her name, the only ag teacher that's a national board certified teacher, Carol Kingston, right?
Carol Kingston, right, yep.
Yes, and we're very fortunate to have her.
And we also do have the Ag Academy at BOCES, which sometimes struggles for enrollment because of the misconceptions around ag and around ag careers also.
Yeah, we're thankful for BOCES' support in that endeavor. So, okay. Well, thanks again, Patty. We really appreciate it.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Before we go any further, I should say that Dave Forsyth is not with us tonight. He is, I believe he's on vacation. So, Kelly, if you would, excuse Mr. Forsyth, please. So our first resolution concerns highway with Mr. Chambers. The first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with J.E. Sheehan Contracting Corp. for replacement of two bridges on the Jones Road over West Branch of St. Regis River. Bid number 33-66-590, bid number 33-411-50. Who would like to move that resolution? Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Arquette. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, thank you. The Jones, as the board may be well aware, the Jones Road bridges that cross the west branch of the St. Regis were closed. And right now they're currently over the existing historic trusses are the recreational temporary bridges that were put in place, which will be removed when and if we move forward with this project to replace those two structures. Now, they are historic in nature, the two trusses. However, this project will replace them with two other historic truss structures that were originally the New Street Bridge in Edwards. So we're replacing them with historic structures to be in compliance with the historic preservation. The project will be funded by the CHIPS funds that in the state and county budget.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? Don, will we be charged, will the county be doing the actual removal of the bridges that were there for the snowmobiles? Or will that be part of the contract?
That's part of the contract.
Okay, so the Sheehan Corporation will get their I-beams back, is that what we're saying?
No, sir. The beams it's in the contract for those to be taken back to the storage yard where we currently have the replacement trusses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chambers. And Mr. Perkins?
I'll be abstaining due to my employment.
Okay, so noted. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And abstention from Mr. Perkins, Kelly. The next resolution is modifying the 2021 budget for the Department of Highways for the St. Lawrence County Bridge Preservation Project. The numbers are bin 3340-980, bin number 3341-780, pin number 7753-96. Moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Ms. Curran. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, thank you. This project was not included in the 2021 budget for construction. And just recently, the New York State DOT informed me that funds are now going to be available to do construction. Just for a point of reference, one of the bridges is on County Road 27 in the grass at the intersection of Tooley Pond on County Road 27. And that is a complete top side of the structure replaced, and the structure widened with about 4-foot shoulders. Right now, it's a very narrow structure. And the other is the Island Branch Road at River Road and Fowler. Basically, it's a truss structure and replacing the faulty deck on that structure. So one project federally and state funded with a 5% county share.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York State DEC, for water quality improvement project, WQ WICRA, or whatever you call it, program grant. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins. Mr. Chambers.
Yes. This resolution will authorize moving forward with this grant. We already have our award letter, and the DEC has informed me that funds will flow for this project. There won't be a delay, but it is a reimbursement, and it's up to $400,000, and it's to fund the salt storage facility in Russell as part of the proposed 3 facility upgrades that we're planning at this point.
Okay, questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a supplemental agreement number 1 with Stantec Consulting Services for additional engineering and design services for the County Route 35 bridge over Trout Brook. Bid number 3341-700, pin number 7753-94, and modifying the 2021 budget for the Highway Department. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Harry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Don. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, this project has been authorized by the board already. But during this project, we encountered the need to realign the stream at this location. It's on County Road 35, town of Potsdam at the intersection of the Potsdam-Morley Road. By doing that, having that requirement, to realign the stream to meet the grant guidelines. It also required us to then go even further into the design for stormwater, dry swales, and also some more cultural resource study. So we're running into more engineering charges than anticipated. However, New York State DOT does support this additional engineering. New York State DOT also supports this project to be included in our future submission for Bridge New York for funding. So all this advanced work is going to be required to comply with Bridge New York and the federal and state guidelines that are required.
Any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is modifying the 2021 budget for the Department of Highways for State Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative grant funds for the Northumberland Street Bridge Project, bid number 3341-380, SJ.3, Town of Morristown. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, second by Ms. Curran. Mr. Chambers, and actually, Mr. Sheridan. Go ahead, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this project was approved for 2.1 million grant through the READY program. However, when we were putting the 2021 budget together, the additional pump station that is now being required to make the sewage system work once the bridge is removed is put into the project. The cost is jumping up to at least the grant amount, and anything over the town has agreed to fund. So we were going on, when we put the budget together, we were going on the best estimate we had at that time. However, unforeseen items happened, and now we're back up to asking for appropriations to match the grant, total grant.
Okay, questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign roadside mowing contracts. Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this is a resolution we bring forward to the board on an annual basis. I have talked to all the town highway superintendents, and they, from these towns, they do support continuing this contract. Last year, the rate was $266 a mile. And this proposed contract is at $271.50 a mile, just over a 2% increase for the towns doing this work. This is included, the funds for this are included in the account that's referenced in the resolution.
Okay, questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, Ms. Terminelli.
Thank you. And I think I kind of ask this every year, Don. Do we have any kind of a plan in place, or have we considered a plan to do scheduled mowings that may curb some of our invasives along our highways, like wild parsnip and the purple loosestrife?
Well, we do have our prescribed times where we have to do the roadside mowing that's prescribed by law. If we can get the roadside mowing done early enough, it does help, but cut down before they go to seed. But it is very difficult to keep up with the schedule.
Okay.
So we're trying.
Okay, so any more questions for Mr. Chambers? Although, Mrs. Haggard.
I did have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just don't know the answer. Is this $271.50 per linear mile, or is it a square mile? What's the breakdown on that?
It's linear.
Linear, just along the side of the road. Okay.
And
And if
271.
I may help explain that a little bit more, it's for 3 separate mowings.
Okay, thank you.
$271.50 for all 3, correct, Mr. Chambers?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Franklin County Highway Department for road salt. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah, New York State's currently conducting a study on the effect of road salt in the Adirondacks, and they're not going to make the results of that study available to the public. Will you have access to that information, and will you make that available to us? And also following up on that, does St. Lawrence County use clear salt or a mixture of sand and salt with their trucks?
Well, how about if I start with, on county roads, we use a mixture of sand and salt. So we do use a reduced amount. The only roads that we use straight salt on are on the state highways that we're doing by contract. So we do use straight salt on those. So I wanted to make sure I differentiated between county roads and what we do contractually. This resolution is for, and as far as the results from the study, the state will be the owner of the information, and I don't know that I will have that information to share, or even if I did have it, whether I'd be allowed to share it. So I think that question would need to go to the state representative.
Okay.
But I do want to point out that that this is a this cooperative agreement we've started about 5 years ago to try to save money for all the municipalities within Franklin and St. Lawrence County. I can tell you that the current salt contract that the St. Lawrence County put out to bid and Franklin County utilized yielded $75 a ton charge per ton for salt, whereas the current contract under New York State OGS is $92.35. I do recommend that we move forward with this. It does save both counties and all the municipalities that join into this purchasing cooperative a lot of money.
Okay, Mr. Reagan.
And Don, where does this all come from?
The current contract is with American Rock Salt, and they have chose 2 different locations to stockpile the salt. One being the Port of Ogdensburg, and the other is with Knowlton's.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And Don, I think you, in the pre-committee, you said we use about 1,100 tons?
11,000.
11,000 tons.
Yes, sir.
So that's a significant savings at $17 a ton. Okay, anything else for Mr. Chambers? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, our next resolution is determining that the construction of equipment garages and salt and sand storage buildings in the towns of Russell, Lisbon, and Potsdam, New York will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, second by Mr. Smithers and Ms. Curran. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you. As it's stated in the resolution, this is for the project that we've been working on for a couple of years now for the design and replacement of our facilities at Russell and Potsdam, and the construction of a new site in Lisbon at the emergency tower location next to the solid waste transfer station. Our consultant, our architect, Brooks Washburn's Corporation, has done the evaluations on all 3 sites and we have provided the backup documentation backing up the statement of the resolution.
Okay. Questions from anyone? Nicole Terminelli and the Environmental Management Council, do you have a response?
No, you just know I want to know about the solar once if we've looked into the solar on the rooftop panels, but that's all. I haven't had anybody address any concerns with me at this point.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is authorizing the acquisition of a permanent easement for construction of a county highway facility in the town of Potsdam. Moved by Mr. Denisha, second by Mr. Smithers, Ms. Curran. Go ahead, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, thank you. I have had discussions with the town regarding this issue for a permanent easement for the immediate area around the proposed buildings and access into the Potsdam property off State Route 345 in the village of Potsdam town property. Currently, we do operate at that location, but only have a temporary building on skids and Porta-John facility and a plug-in for the trucks that are all trucks and equipment that remain outside. The sand and salt mixture pile is also outside with no cover. So this permanent easement would allow us to continue operations there with indoor storage and for the equipment and also for our sand salt mixture that we use on our roadways. This is in no way have been finalized, but the discussions with the town supervisor, the town highway superintendent, and their attorney have been favorable discussions at this point. And this would help us move this project along from the county's perspective, and then the town would take this, of course, up on their own.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Chambers? Okay, so John, the environmental issues, will we be doing like an environmental assessment of this property as far as, I mean, it's been kind of an industrial site, that we've been moving on and they've been moving on. Will be anything like that be part of this easement as far as environmental?
That was not anticipated that we'd be doing that. We are doing that we already covered the seeker determination, but as far as doing test borings and anything of that nature, that was not part of the original scope.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is authorizing the issuance of a negative declaration related to the SJ.03 Northumberland Bridge Project in Morristown, New York. Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Smithers, and Mr. Lightfoot. Go ahead, Don.
Yes, thank you. The county already did a negative declaration on this project with resolution 113 of 2020. However, with the addition of the vacuum pump station, we had to amend that declaration, and that's why I'm requesting another resolution to deal with that amendment of our scope of our project. Backup documentation also has been provided on Google Drive for legislators, but again, to back up the statement made by this resolution.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So next up, we have our real property with Mr. Green. The resolution is income-based real property exemptions information.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about the income-based exemptions that the county has in other towns and municipalities as well. This stems from last month. I was invited to talk with the St. Lawrence County Fair Housing Task Force. I was asked to give a short presentation on the exemptions that is offered by towns, villages, the county, and school districts. The two exemptions is the senior citizens exemption and the persons with disabilities and limited income exemption. Folks, property owners qualify for these exemptions by first being 65 years of age or older and meeting the income requirements for the senior exemption. And for the disability and limited income exemption, a person actually has to have a disability and again meet the income exemption. So the background of this was there was some concern that the income ceilings have become outdated, and there would probably be some interest over the next year in meeting with municipalities to take another look at their exemption limits and what their income ceilings are at. In order to do that, I wanted to present to you tonight a little bit of the schedules of both. So if you would turn to the second page, it shows the income limits for the disability and limited income exemption. You'll notice there's a number of towns there, a couple of villages in the St. Lawrence County's income limits. I want to point you to the St. Lawrence County portion. Under the base income limit, a person that can qualify for this exemption needs to make $10,000 or less in order to qualify for the 50% exemption on their property taxes. If they're over that and up to $18,400, there's a sliding scale that reduces down to 5% in $1,000 increments. So a person can make over 10,000, but not over 18.4 to still get an exemption amount. The second exemption I wanted to spend a minute on was the senior citizens exemption, page 3. Again, folks that are 65 years of age and older can qualify as long as they meet the income limits there. If you turn to the next page, you'll see you'll see the number of towns that offer this, and most of them vary from one town to the next of their income limits. Some, as you see, are sliding scales. Others are just a straight base amount. For example, Morristown at $18,000 for their base amount, and that's also their maximum income. So someone that makes $18,000 or less would get the 50% exemption on their property taxes. St. Lawrence County is at the bottom at $12,000, and St. Lawrence County has a sliding scale up to $17,699. Just below that, you'll notice that this past year, the town of Fowler and also the town of Messina have both increased their exemption ceiling limits to the numbers given, to $15,000 for Fowler and Messina up to $29,000. So just to give a little numbers background on what we're seeing is with the help of planning with John Tenbush, Matilda Larson, I was able to ask a little bit more on census numbers, and I looked up also myself with the U.S. Census. Folks in the county that are 65 years of age or older, there's 18,398 folks. About a third of those, 6,700, are under the poverty line. Okay, the poverty line for a single household in St. Lawrence County is 12,490. So, and the next level is for two people in a household is 16,910. So below those numbers are extreme poverty. If you go back to the senior exemption, you'll notice that that 17,699 is quite close to that. So if someone is making that level or less, they're getting a little bit off on their property taxes. So again, there may be some interest. You may be asked to consider looking at the limits that the county currently has. It's been about 10 years since the last time the numbers have increased. Okay. And I did some quick calculations that 150% of an income limit, if this was to increase 150% of the 16,910, that would take the base income limit to 25,365. All right. With that, I estimated that it would mean an increase of about just less than 500 households would then increase at that new higher level. This would factor that it would cost the county 28 cents per $1,000 assessed value property. So that's what the cost that I've calculated it to be for an increase of 150% of the current max. So that's just one calculation at 150%. It's something that at least you can consider, in the down the road if it's brought, to your attention. Now, the flip side of that is when you offer a greater exemption or other exemptions, then others pick up the difference. The levy amount is still the amount that you go out and to budget for. Everyone else then picks up that increase. And again, in this case, I figured that to be about 28 cents on $100,000 assessed value. So the only other, I believe the last page of your paperwork has a color representation of the county. And what that is the limits by town currently of the senior citizens exemption. So you can kind of, at a quick visual, you can see which each town is, what each town is at this point, their high limits are. Is there any questions?
Okay, Mr. Smithers.
Yes, just so we understand this, or at least maybe, these income figures, is this gross income or taxable income?
This is gross income. Yep.
Nicole has a question.
Nicole, I'm sorry, Ms. Terminelli, please.
Thank you. Bruce, thank you for bringing this information to us this evening. I definitely, I appreciate when we're able to provide relief to those on fixed incomes or that are less able to secure living wages. I do have one question though. What would stop somebody from, if you lived with, let's say, an elderly folk or somebody over the age of 65, or if you had somebody with a disability in your family, what would stop somebody from just simply transferring ownership of their property to be able to take benefit of this exemption? I guess I'm just concerned. We know that our tax base seems to be forever shrinking, and our exemptions that people are able to qualify for, or businesses are able to qualify for, oftentimes does increase the obligation of those that do, support the taxes in the county. And I'm just wondering what would stop somebody from doing that.
On the senior exemption, a person does need to own the property for 12 consecutive months before they qualify for the exemption. A person would then have to fill out the application and give to the assessor by March 1st taxable status date. So there really isn't anything that would would not, would allow, so a person wouldn't transfer property. It's possible, but again, that person would need to own it themselves or others, but the total income for all owners would have to meet the income qualifications in order to obtain that exemption.
But just to clarify, so technically speaking, if my parents were to move in with me and they were living in my property, I could transfer ownership over to them and we could take advantage of this tax exemption after they owned it for a year, technically.
That's right. That's right. Yep. As long as they owned it themselves and they met the income qualifications, which is, as we see, it's extremely low, then they could qualify for an exemption. That's right.
Okay, we get numerous questions. I'll come back to you, Mr. Smithers. Mrs. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bruce, I'm taking notes. I want to be sure I got this right. Did you say increasing by 150% increases the burden to other taxpayers by 28 cents per 100,000? Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Actually, Nicole asked my question, but it's something that's a trend today that many children are moving in with their parents because of the way things are. So there's definitely a chance that this is being taken advantage of. So we might want to look at this closely.
Okay, Mr. Smithers.
In regards to your question, Ms. Terminelli, you want to be careful in regards to them ever going into a nursing home with how the nursing home would determine assets that they had and how many years they go back to the ownership of that property. So be aware of that.
Okay, Mr. Burke.
And
I'm sorry, Mr. Green, do you have a response to that?
yeah, and yes, that's a good point. A person that does go into a nursing home and has their house there, no one other than a co-owner could then live in that house as the other owner was in the nursing home in order to still qualify. So if a child that was not an owner or someone else, they could not rent it out. A child couldn't live there and still retain that exemption. And this is a renewal type exemption. Each year, the assessor sends out these applications for renewal, and a person has to qualify through their income.
Okay, Mr. Burke.
Bruce, is it 28 cents per thousand assessed value or 28 cents per 100,000? Because I think you just said it was 28 cents per 100,000. And I have
That's
one
correct.
other question. It's per 100,000?
Yes, that's right.
And the other question, because it's income based, somebody could have $500,000 or $1 million in 401k, or there's no asset determination. It's strictly what they claim on their income tax.
That's right. Oftentimes, folks that apply for these, some don't file income taxes. They have such low income. They bring in oftentimes their social security statements and that sort of thing. So the assessor always would like to see a tax return, but sometimes it's just not available, and it's not filled. It's not filled out or required by New York State or the federal government because their income is so low.
Thank you.
Ms. Terminelli.
Thank you. And I don't know, Bruce, if you have this right handy, but could you provide us with the percentage of properties in St. Lawrence County that fall under this exemption, and also the amount that the exemption is worth on an annual, maybe a past 3-year kind of trend?
Yes. The current The current value within St. Lawrence County for both, I've included both exemptions together, the disability and limited income exemption, as well as the aged, is a total value of $11,792 million. 11,792,000. Let's do it that way. That equates to 90. Let me go back here. That equates to about $97,000 to the county in taxes. Okay, currently. That's what the amount is actually being set. That's what it's costing the county at this point, and not the towns, just the county.
Ms. Curran.
Is it primary residence only, or is it all property owned by the person?
Just a primary residence, where the person lives.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So Mr. Green, at 28 cents per 100,000, how much money are we talking that we would be redistributing as far as taxes to others?
The difference on that is, let's take a quick look here. So currently, again, it's 97,000 at the current rates. The increase by that 50% increase in level would mean an extra about $47,000 that would be picked up by other property owners.
So, okay, so 47 and 97 is what you're saying.
Yep.
$154,000. If you're combining the $97,000 currently.
97 and 47 should be like 144.
I'll say 144. Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Burke.
I think the alternative to that, rather than asking taxpayers to pick it up, would be to decrease the levy and take it out of fund balance. Is that correct? Could we do that?
Are you asking me, Mr. Burke?
Well, I don't know that I'd want to put you in that position, Bruce.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Green? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. Our next up is Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIO, with Barb Lashua. The resolution is authorizing the treasurer to modify the program year 20 Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIO, budget to transfer formula funds from dislocated worker accounts to adult accounts. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Denisha. Go ahead, Ms. Lashua.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well. The request for transfer of funds here would provide flexibility that would ensure we're able to provide services to as many eligible participants as possible, but wouldn't cause the denial of services due to the transfer of funds.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Lashua concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Next up for our county attorney, Mr. Button, is a resolution authorizing the submission of a joint application for intervenor funds with the towns of Brazier, Norfolk, and Messina related to a public service law, Article 10 proceeding regarding the siting of an industrial scale solar generating facility and authorizing a chair to sign service agreements. Moved by Mr. Arquette, second by Ms. Curran and Mr. Perkins and Ms. Terminelli. Go ahead, Mr. Button.
Thank you. I know the board is already aware of the proposed development of a large-scale industrial-sized solar array that would be placed in the towns of Messina, Brazier, and Norfolk. Meetings have been held between the planning department, our outside attorney, Gary Bowich, my office, with the attorneys for the town, as well as an engineering firm, Barton and LaJudas, to develop an application for intervenor funds and to explore certain aspects of the development of this large-scale solar site. As the resolution indicates, these intervenor funds are capable of reaching as much as $180,000. The three towns, as well as the county, in conjunction with the engineering firm, would like to apply for the maximum allowable to allow us to move forward with exploration of those certain types of issues. This resolution would authorize that. There is a small caveat. The resolution does not identify an effective date. The submission deadline is actually April 2nd, but the full board meeting isn't scheduled until April 5th. If there is no objection, and if the board is willing to approve this resolution, I would like to add an effective date of April 2nd to this resolution. So essentially, when it is authorized on April 5th at the full board meeting, if the board does so, it would be retroactively applicable to the date of filing, that April 2nd date.
And where in the body of the resolution would that appear, Mr. Button?
It does not. So there would be an additional now therefore be it resolved provision at the end that the resolution is effective April 2nd, 2021.
So we would need somebody to sponsor that amendment to this resolution. Moved by Mr. Perkins, second by Ms. Curran. Any discussion on the addition of the amendment to this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment,
Aye.
please say aye. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, it's approved. Okay, back to the amended resolution. Mr. Botten, anything further? Or questions for you?
No, not at this point, but if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer what I can.
Okay, we have a question from Mr. Reagan.
You said there's the opportunity to explore certain issues. What are they?
Mr. Reagan, did you say what are they?
Yeah, you said that by getting granted intervenor status, that would give the opportunity to explore certain issues. And I'm just curious what those issues are that will be explored with this.
For those who aren't familiar, the intervenor funds can be utilized by impacted communities to assess the impacts to their roadways, for hauling of the materials across either county or town roads. They can be utilized to assess decommissioning agreements associated with the shutdown of solar arrays at the conclusion of their useful life. One of the things that was discovered with some of the early solar arrays, not necessarily in this county, across the country, was that at the conclusion of the solar array's life, those panels oftentimes would need to be disposed of as a certain type of hazardous material, given the rare earth metals that were utilized in the solar panels themselves. So these types of funds can be utilized to explore the environmental impacts, to explore the infrastructure impacts to these various communities. And I know that that is actually what is anticipated. That's partially why Barton and LaJudas has been brought in to be a potential contractor with the towns and with the county, is really to explore the impact of this type of project to those various towns and more generally to the county as a whole with respect to our infrastructure.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Fay.
1,200 to 1,400 acres, how many of it's going to be on prime farmland?
Go ahead, Mr. Button. How much is did you hear the question?
I did, and Mr. Fay, unfortunately at this point, I'm not aware of how much will impact prime farmland. I do know our planning department is a part of this project and very supportive of making the application for the intervenor funds. I would suspect that they would be able to answer that question. I know Jason Fotenhauer, our planning director, was a part of the initial meeting and the follow-up meeting with the towns and with Gary Bowich and myself. So I'm sure, given the fact that they have been a fairly large proponent of the agricultural land designations, that they are keeping track of that.
Could any of the legislators answer Mr. Fay's question if they're familiar with the project? I thought that it was all forest land before that had been harvested. Tony?
It's
Mr. Arquette?
2,000 total acres for the property, 1,000 acres of solar. It's a big portion of it is clear cut property. But as far as prime farmland, I don't know the exact acreage.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. No further questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
The next resolution is from Mr. Denisha. Mr. Denisha, would you like to speak to the resolution or offer your resolution, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution requesting the New York State Department of Transportation perform a traffic study and investigation on a portion of US Route 11 in the town of DeKalb. In supporting a request by the town of DeKalb for enactment of Senate Bill S 1868 and Assembly Bill A 4201 to reduce the maximum speed limit on certain public roadways, and move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Mr. Reagan and Mr. Sheridan. Discussion on the resolution. Mr. Denisha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure most everyone is familiar with the location of the Herman DeKalb School. There's an intersection of the East DeKalb Road and US Route 11. And there has been a history of motor vehicle accidents at that intersection over the years. We just had there was a rather serious accident a couple of years ago. Could have very easily been a fatality. And at that point, there were petitions circulated in the community. We had well over 800 signatures requesting the state DOT lower the speed limit. And the DOT, and I understand they have rules and regulations, but because the road, there was not a direct road or direct driveway off Route 11 to the school. That being said, the only way to get to the school is from Route 11 onto East DeKalb Road. The athletic fields for the school are also located just about a quarter of a mile from that intersection, probably less than a quarter of a mile. So what we had asked for was a reduction in this 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, quarter of a mile north of the intersection of US Route 11 and the East DeKalb Road, and a quarter of a mile north. We were successful. The DOT did come in last year, changed the traffic pattern, which was, we're certainly very thankful for. But the problem or the hazard is still not completely mitigated. And the concern, my concern, as well as the communities that I represent and all the staff at the school, is that given the history of that intersection, there have been a number of serious accidents there. It's only going to be a matter of time before there's an accident that's much more serious that occurs, and we will be saying, gosh, I wish we would have done something about this. So I think it's only fair to request the county legislature's support of these bills. And I want to note that Senator Ritchie has been instrumental in helping us with this, and as has Assemblyman Blankenbush. So I would urge support from the board for this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Denisha. Mr. Smithers.
Yes, I'm very familiar with this area. I drive past it every Monday night on my way here. and other times that I travel to Canton. And there certainly is a need for this. I was under the impression that the caution light speed limit was 40 miles an hour, so I was slowed down by there. But to extend that to the soccer area, I think is certainly a reasonable request, and I would urge to support this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Curran.
I was going to echo that. I drive that every other week, 3 nights in a row, you know, back and forth, and people whiz through there, they're just flying.
There's no caution light there now, right?
Yes.
Oh, they did put
There is a caution light. The caution light was installed a number of years ago, again, after a number of accidents. So this has been an ongoing, you know, first we got the caution lights, which were certainly better than nothing. But as you know, people, I think, well, they disregard. You know, the caution lights are there, but it's still a posted speed limit of 55 miles an hour with the intersection. And I might add that it's a blind intersection if you're coming on Route 11 from Herman.
Yes.
And also at the athletic fields, if you're pulling out of the athletic fields onto Route 11, if you're turning north, there's a blind hill to your right. And yeah, it's we've got the caution lights. We've got the traffic pattern is redirected, but we're still in need of, you know, the immediate problem is not solved.
Okay, anyone else? Mrs. Haggard.
So I just want to see if I can get this. You want it reduced to 45. The school zone is 25, right?
It would be in the village. It's a village campus. I don't know. There's no posted speed.
But the state DOT maintains that is not a school zone.
Oh, because of the entrance being on the other road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is something we faced at Mount Waddington for years. And they did a study, then told us no.
Mhm.
And then, I don't know, it's been at least 20 years. And finally, it's been reduced to 45 miles an hour. People still foolishly park on State Route 345 to watch a ball game, baseball.
Yeah.
Which that should be restricted. Mrs. Haggard, you'd like to finish?
To add to that, Mr. Chair, there was a very similar situation at Burnham's Corners. There were several fatalities there with the same problem. I mean, not involving a school, but it took a lot, and they never did reduce the speed or put up a light. And after a number of fatalities, I wish you good luck with this.
Thanks. So the only thing that I would add is I looked at who we're sending it to. It's not being sent to anybody at DOT. It's all being sent to our representatives. I think it'd be more effective if it included the proper channel to send it to the Department of Transportation in Watertown or whoever you send it to, Larry. We could add that.
Certainly.
Okay. Any further discussion on the resolution? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our next resolution is proclaiming March 21st to the 27th of 2021 as National Agricultural Week in St. Lawrence County. Moved by Mr. Smithers and Ms. Curran. Any discussion on the resolution? Tomorrow is actually National Ag Day. We had a great presentation by Patty Fisher. And the farmers in our area and across the country, they work extremely hard. And it's nice that there's recognition for them. I think our discussion we've had an extensive discussion about it from Ms. Fisher. Anybody have any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next resolution, Mr. Lightfoot, if you'd like to introduce that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution authorizing the consolidation of the Department of Social Services Legal Unit with the Office of the County Attorney. Move for its adoption.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Perkins and Mr. Sheridan. Mr. Lightfoot.
Okay, I'd like to direct everyone back to July 29th. And on July 29th, the St. Lawrence County Family Court received a email from the legal offices of the Department of Social Services. And it states in part, the county attorney's office is going to be covering support court for us for the next 30 days, beginning today. That was sent to the family court without any notice to the district, without any notice to the county attorney that the county attorney's office would be expected to take over the support issues in St. Lawrence County Family Court. About a week later, the county attorney, feeling that he had no authority to do that there was no resolution authorizing him to do that from this board, the Board of Legislators, that he had to tell them that he was no longer going to be doing that. Therefore, it rested back with the Department of Social Services legal. A few weeks later, there was correspondence from the legal unit in social services requesting additional attorney staff, no numbers, additional support staff, no numbers, an increase in the salaries for the attorneys in social services, a request to contract the appeals work of the Department of Social Services to an outside agency, and to have support matters managed by the county attorney's office. So after receiving that, I think that probably most of you that were here would recall that there was considerable back and forth about this. There was a discussion. Actually, nothing at that time came of it until I believe it was well, I can't give you an exact date, but there came a time in December, I believe it was December 7th, that the Board of Legislators of St. Lawrence County passed a resolution and a resolution that dictated that the support work of the Department of Social Services legal would be handled by the county attorney's office. That went to social services and it apparently underwent a considerable amount of review within that office and within social services. And it wasn't until fully 2 months later almost that apparently somebody found out that the requirement was that this had to be sent to Albany to the Office of OTDA is the acronym for it. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but that they had to pass on what the contract was. And there was some back and forth with that. Not only why it took so long to get it down there, but why it took so long to get an answer back from OTDA. So when the answer finally did come back, the county was provided with a statement that the OTDA discussing the current proposal comes to the conclusion that it not be within their parameters of most cost effective. Therefore, the contract was not approved by OTDA. The process which needed to be followed was provided to the Department of Social Services. That was actually, that product, that paper was provided to the county attorney's office. and with a verbal report on its need and its effect on the contract, where the commissioner informed the county attorney that the only thing that was lacking to the OTBA for consideration was a worksheet for the hourly rate of legal services. And other than that, the county attorney was informed that his proposed contract rate was in fact acceptable by OTBA. So since then, nothing has been done with respect to, nothing has been done since that correspondence. And that's still in a state of, I guess, in the inactive file. We are looking at a situation here where not only the Department of Social Services with respect to CPS and the support staff need additional staff, but the legal Department of Social Services also says that they need staff. Looking at it, it seems like a no-brainer that one of the things that should be considered is the way that other counties in the state conduct the legal matters of the Department of Social Services. Half of them do it much like we are doing now. The other half do it through the auspices of the county attorney. And the county attorney has staff on board, deputy county attorneys or assistant county attorneys, to handle that work. And it is a perfectly legal thing to see that the county attorney's office is empowered by law to do that. And in fact, prior to, I believe, 1984, St. Lawrence County did engage in that way of, or in that manner of providing legal services to the St. Lawrence County Department of Social Services. So what the Department of Social Services would get from such a change would be the services of not one, but two additional attorneys from the county attorney's office, plus the staff of the county attorney's office. And which would not add to the budget of social services to any great degree. And in fact, a considerable portion of the salaries of those two additional attorneys would be reimbursed by the state of New York, if in fact that were going to happen. So it would also address or bring up for consideration the request from DOSS Legal that the county attorney's office would, or the county would look to farm out, if you will, or contract out the appeals work that they have within their practice. I don't know what that would cost. I don't know how many appeals there are, but to, I think, contract out with the firm, it would be, there would be some expense to it. So there is, more than one reason, and of course there are other reasons, personal as they relate to staff that are not really discussable, if you will, in this forum. I think that this should be considered. I think it is a wise move. I think it is a way to provide two seasoned attorneys, two attorneys that have worked in the Department of Social Services in the recent past, are familiar with their needs, are familiar with the process, are familiar with the players, within the family court system and within the Department of Social Services. I think it would be a smart move to do this. I think also that it would provide for a more stable environment within the Department of Social Services. And I would ask for this committee's support in moving it forward to the full board in April.
Anyone else? Mrs. Haggard.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse from both the discussion and voting on this resolution.
Okay, so noted, Mrs. Haggard. Mr. Marquardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislator Lightfoot began this conversation back in July of 2020, I believe. Do you have the date of when Commissioner Ackerman began?
We can ask Ruth Doyle.
September,
September, Tony.
Of 2020.
correct.
Okay, so it was my recollection that Attorney Button stepped into the Department of Social Services because we were transitioning at the time. We had an interim commissioner searching vigorously for a replacement, in which we found in September. As she's moved forward, certainly I and several of my colleagues in conversations have every reason to believe that with the new commissioner, things are improving in social services. She's been there since September. She hasn't been there that long. I would have to ask, I guess, Legislator Lightfoot if there was an indication from our Commissioner of Social Services that we needed to move in this direction.
Okay. Mr. Burke, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry?
I thought I asked a question. I would, if I could, I'd like to catch that.
Oh, then, yeah, by all means, Tony should have an answer.
Certainly. Mr. Lightfoot, would you like to provide an answer?
She did not indicate anything such as you are referring to.
Okay, so follow up, please.
Certainly.
So, I guess then, the biggest question I would have with Legislator Lightfoot's explanation of why we're here makes no sense to me. We have a new commissioner who I believe, again, is heading us in the right direction. The legal staff have been increased, to a 4, where everything seems to be working smoothly. We've noticed a complete change in the demeanor of staff at all levels over there. We have every indication that things are heading in the right direction, and we want to intervene, certainly without the blessing or support of our Commissioner of Social Services. I absolutely will not be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Burke.
Some of us took the time when this resolution came out, some of us took the time to contact the commissioner. And I'm going to tell you what I understood her to say to me, that she was extremely pleased with her legal department. She had complete trust in them. She did not want to change. She does not want to change now. She's not looking for it. So it's not a matter of not even asking her. And I think she even said at a meeting prior to this that her preference would be to fill support from within her own department. And it wasn't 2 minutes after that somebody made the suggestion that we should continue to look out elsewhere. Now, to go back to the July 29th email that Joe referenced, I want to point out that in July, they were down 3 lawyer positions. They were down 75% of their legal staff. They were able to hire one in August and I believe 2 in September that brought them up to the full complement. Cindy came, in reference to this July, Cindy came to work either late August or early September. I think Ruth said September. So, so again, here we are throwing a fix, and there's more than what meets the eye here. The county legislature, there is a group of individuals looking to fix DSS that doesn't need fixing. What needs to be addressed, Cindy's been crystal clear about this. What needs to be addressed are the number of caseworkers. From 2015 up to the present time, we've had a turnover of 43 case managers and case manager supervisors. Now, I'm not even going to speculate on the number of hours lost because of that turnover, but that's where the burning issue is. And there's always the question about, have we lost money? Well, certainly we've lost money. From 2015, our numbers were at 155. Today, for children in care, today it's over 340. Now, we can squabble about the dollar amount for that, but it's huge. It's a huge amount. Cindy and her team come up with a solution for that. And so what is our solution? We're going to sabotage them. We're going to go right at the heart of what is now working well, and that's the legal department. We're going to attack them for whatever reason. Certainly don't buy the reason that was put forward. And here's the other thing that needs to be clear in everybody's mind, and especially the mind of our public, that there is financial gain. There was financial gain proposed for the county attorney's office, both the county attorney and his deputy county attorney. And there is loss. This resolution essentially terminates the 4 lawyers that are there now. They're abolishing their position. These are civil service titles that were found appropriate by our HR department for the duties that had to be fulfilled. So what does this proposal do? Forget civil service titles. Forget what the job specs are. Let's just simply make them all at-will employees. So if we don't like the way they part their hair, we can fire them. I'm going to tell you, this is my recommendation, my strong recommendation to the key people in the Department of Social Services. Take a look. You brought forward issues that affect the taxpayers. You brought forth issues that affect the lives of children and families. 25% of children in foster care, 25% end up in the criminal system. If they've had 5 placements or more, 90% end up in the criminal system. 1 to 2% go on to go to college. You want to know what the effects of prolonged care and foster care does? Just Google it. You'll find a ton of information. So here we are we're attacking the organization that has brought forward a plan to fix this. And the one solid piece that they've already fixed is their legal department. And we're going to do this. We're going to abolish these 4 positions, 4 people who came to work less than a year ago and who were told at the time what their job duties were going to be. And now we're pulling the rug out from underneath them. I'm going to tell you, my strong suggestion to each and every one of them is to seek whistleblower protection, because when you bring attention of what's going on to the public, you need to be protected. And my strong recommendation is for them to do that. And I'm going to tell you, if you follow through with this, then I'll be joining them. I'll help them in any way that I can, because it's in the public interest to make sure that we're not doing anything that is inappropriate. So I guess what I would say, it's a major change. At the very least, we shouldn't be rushing through it without consideration. Social service attorneys are members of the classified civil service. Their positions are being abolished and changed to unclassified titles to serve as at-will assistant county attorneys. Is this in compliance with social service law and the civil service law? If the legal department is transferred to the county attorney's office, what will the impact be on salary reimbursement, given that the department is currently reimbursed at the higher 81% rate for these employees? Support staff at DSS are not being transferred to the county attorney's office, only attorney staff. Who will support the staff of the former general counsel's, who will the support staff of the former general counsel's office report to? Will a contract be required for staff to provide support and clerical services? What authority would attorneys have to direct the work of DSS staff if they are members of the county attorney's office? What would the organizational chart look like? Who would Steve report to in this capacity? Cindy has overall responsibility for DSS. Does that mean that in the organizational chart, Steve would report to Cindy? And that in this proposal to increase the salary of the county attorney by $9,600 and the deputy county attorney for $5,400, there was mention of the fact that that would be up to 40% of their time. Now, again, I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to ask the question, if up to 40% of their time could be allocated and we would feel justified in billing social services for that portion of the time, how does that reconcile with the duties they now have? I mean, I'm of the belief that they've got a pretty full plate, you know, and now they can take on more. I mean, where did this plan come from? I'm amazed. So I guess what I would say, I'd make a motion to adjourn this proposed resolution to finance in April. And in the meantime, let's ask for outside counsel to give us guidance on what's legal and ethical.
I second that.
Okay, so John, you have a motion to table, is that correct?
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn this resolution to the Finance Committee meeting in April, and to seek outside counsel that is not in any way affiliated with our organization, that could provide unbiased counsel to as to what we should be doing, what we should be considering. This is no small change. This is a huge change. with significant impact. And I think at the very least, we owe it to the people we represent to make sure that it's well thought and that it has, that we've considered all the key elements that need to be considered.
So I'm not familiar with the motion to adjourn a particular resolution. Is that a parliamentary procedure? I'm not familiar with it, Mr. Berg. So
Well,
I'm familiar with it.
If it's not, then I guess I would change it to table until that meeting. But I'm not looking to pass it off. I'm not asking anybody not to vote for it. All I'm saying is that there is so much more information that all of the legislators need to be aware of.
Okay.
And
so we may have an answer from our county attorney as far as parliamentary. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Button.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn to a definite date is a primary motion. It ceases debate on the current topic. If it has been seconded, it is not debatable. And that's been made and Tony seconded it. So it's on the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's no discussion, so I don't think I can take you, Mrs. Haggard. Would that be correct? There's no further discussion, Mr. Button?
No, I want to ask a question, if I may.
I don't know if you can because the motion's been made, so I don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I knew the answer. Mr. Button, Mrs. Haggard has a question
for him.
But a motion's been made and second, but you said there's no discussion. Can I allow Mrs. Haggard to ask her question, or do we have to wait till after the vote?
If she's making a point of information, that is also a primary. And when there's a primary with a request to table or request to adjourn, a point of information actually can be posed. So, Mrs. Haggard, do you have a question?
I do, for you, Mr. Button.
Certainly.
Thank you. I recuse from both discussion and voting on the resolution itself. Would it be a conflict, in your opinion, since you advised the ethics board, whether I vote on tabling of this resolution?
Mrs. Haggard, I believe you've recused yourself from the debate, and the motion to table is a part of that debate. So from that perspective, and I please understand, I'm trying to be very careful with how I provide guidance in this too. I know Mr. Burke did not identify as such, but he's right. I have the potential for pecuniary gain as a result of this issue. And for that reason, from a subject matter perspective, I don't believe it's appropriate for me to be involved in any portion of the debate. I'm trying to resolve certain parliamentary questions. And from that perspective, I'm just trying to provide as impartial guidance as I possibly can with respect to that issue, but then I intend to step back out myself. With respect to the question, she was able to pose the question. There is now a motion to adjourn to a definite date that is pending, that was seconded by legislator Arquette. There is no debate on that motion to adjourn to a definite date. If the vote fails, then you continue with the current debate. If the vote succeeds, then the debate ceases, period.
Okay, and may I ask, Mr. Button, is it 2/3? Is it a simple majority?
The decision to adjourn is a simple majority vote. It is not, so it does not require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. By
No, he changed it to a motion to table.
Mr. Burke, would you clarify what your motion is then, please, for the record?
Well, I'm going to have to ask Steve again. Is the motion to adjourn, Steve, in proper format?
It is valid. It is a valid motion.
Okay, so it's the motion to adjourn this resolution until the finance meeting in April.
And Mr. Arquette, do you agree to that with your second? Okay. So there's no discussion. So I would ask all those in favor of adjourning this to the finance meeting in April, signify by putting your hands up. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5. All those against adjourning it? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Mr. Sheridan. Okay. So that fails, so we go back to the original resolution. Anyone else? Mr. Lightfoot?
I can understand the reticence of my colleagues. What I would suggest is we have a 2-week period before, if this is passed, before it would appear before the full board. I think that if you are diligent in your inquiries, I think you will find a lot of things that bear on this. I would leave it up to you. You've already, some of you have already done your homework and have reached out and made contact at the Department of Social Services. I would suggest that you dig a little deeper and satisfy yourselves as far as what is accurate and what isn't accurate. One of the things that you might want to look at is how it came to pass that in July of the past year, when neither the new commissioner nor neither the head of the legal department over there were employed in social services, that the caseload per case worker in the Child Protective Services was a little bit over 14 per caseworker. We're being told a lot of things about the number of cases. We are not being told about a lot more with respect to the number of cases, how they're assigned, how a case is determined, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I would say is that dig a little deeper, folks. You may be surprised that there are some plausible reasons. The last one that I would say to you needs to be explored is why St. Lawrence County's numbers of children in care and custody are over twice what the statewide average is. There's a reason. If you take a look at the surrounding counties, Franklin County is per capita in the same boat we are, really. But if you take a look at those other North Country counties and Jefferson and Lewis in addition, you'll find that they are either at or below what the statewide average is. And St. Lawrence County sticks out like a big red light on that North Country map with all the numbers we've got. There's a reason for that. This just didn't happen. I don't know what the reason is, and I don't think social services knows what the reason is either. So it's difficult to go to them to try and get an answer other than what they think. There's no evidentiary process that's been looked at, gone through, promoted to come up with some answers. All we get is we need more people and we want to contract this out, blah, blah, things like that. So I will actually, or would have actually voted in favor of tabling this, because if you want a month to look at, fine, but I think 2 weeks is plenty. If you can't get what you need in 2 weeks, I don't think you'll ever get it. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I raised this question a couple of weeks ago in a committee meeting. The reason I did that was the DSS legal has asked for help. The whole department has asked for help on an ongoing basis. We had that resolution back in December to contract out the county attorney's office. It didn't happen for whatever reason. I know some of the questions was the reimbursement rate of 21% or 81%. If the county attorney's office joins in here, they will be up to the 81% reimbursement. But we're not saying that the DSS legal or the whole department isn't a dedicated staff. They need help for the already overburdened legal department, caseworkers, all involved. And what it is, it's about taking care of the children, trying to get them on a faster path to be in an environment that is safe and nurturing. Members of the DSS has stated that they need help because the situation is in peril. Last week at the modifying the state training budget, Ms. Ackerman stated that more resources are needed and legal so that they can spend more time with the children and the family. I believe the county attorney's office has experience that they can help them do this. And to me, it's ultimately about doing what is right for the neglected and abused children. So let's give the DSS legal all the support we can, and I think this will do it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do feel that the county attorney's office has some experience that they may be able to help with the poor situation we're in.
Okay, Ms. Terminelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Rick, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront of this discussion. Department of Social Services is charged with the welfare of children and families, and that is their number one obligation and priority. When I look at across this resolution from the top to the bottom, there's a couple of points that stick out to me. For starters, in 1984, it seems like we switched from a model where the county attorney's office handled support cases, or they handle all legal matters, it seems like, for the Department of Social Services. And for some reason in 1984, they switched from that model to the model that we're currently using. So I guess I would say first and foremost is what we were doing then didn't work and there was a need to switch. So I'm not really sure why switching back, and I understand times and needs change, but I'm not, if there was a reason to switch to the model that we currently use, I don't know why we'd go back to that. And then as far as that December resolution that we've spoken of countless times in this conversation, I would note that when that resolution was brought to us, it was at the request of Department of Social Services to contract out for up to a year because their caseload was so high and the support cases, and they were trying to work to get those numbers down. So that was the request. It was at the recommendation of Department of Social Services that resolution came to the floor. And it was supposed to be for up to a year with a 6-month review. And while we haven't seen the movement on that, we've been provided with a reason why that movement hasn't happened. When I look at the social services attorneys, that 100% of their time is dedicated to the children and families in this county. And then I think about the fact that we're going to abolish those positions and they're going to be replaced by assistant county attorneys. And many of you have said that the county attorney's office does a phenomenal job and they are very, very capable attorneys, and I couldn't agree more. However, their time would be shared between many, many, many different duties. They'd have to wear many, many hats. We would no longer have attorneys that were 100% in the expertise of supporting our families and our children, and I think that that's a disservice. We talked about in July 29th, the number of cases, the average was at 14 children. And I guess right away, I wonder, so how many cases total did we have, right? Are we comparing with apples or apples with oranges? And as far as the statewide average and our numbers in St. Lawrence County being so high, we need to look to the root cause. And I don't know that shuffling attorney positions that 100% of their time is focused on children and families and the needs and making sure kids are placed in the right care. I'm not sure that offsetting that and putting that on somebody else's plate is going to relieve any of those stresses or strains on our children. So I'm looking at it that the Board of Legislators right now is making a recommendation to take attorneys that 100% are dedicated to children and families and shifting that to people that will no longer be 100% dedicated, even though they may be just as capable. They'll be very, very split between many hats. And this evening, I cannot support a resolution that has not come at the recommendation of the Department of Social Services or our county administrator with her insight into the ins and outs of these departments, whether it's the county attorney's office or Department of Social Services. I, in good faith, would not proclaim to have the expertise to make that move without somebody with some insider knowledge being able to present that. And if that knowledge is out there, by all means, let's not take 2 weeks to kind of keep it hidden to ourselves. If there's something out there that the board needs to be made aware of, then by all means share it openly, would be my request.
Anyone else? Mr. Reagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any problem with the concept of having the county attorney oversee the social services, legal services. But at the same time, I don't think we necessarily need to rush into it. I was under the impression that we had given a mandate to the social services legal team that we wanted to see some action as far as moving these cases through family court. And we really haven't seen any reports as to the number of cases that have been opened and dealt with, and why we're still at over 300 cases. One of the things that the new commissioner told us several months ago was that she had made it a priority to review a lot of the most long-standing cases on a weekly basis to see what needed to be done in as many cases as possible to move them along and to make sure that the children received the proper level of care. I'll be curious to hear what progress, if any, there's been from those weekly reviews. I think, this board had made it very clear several months ago that it was our preference that the support cases should be handled by the county attorney's office. The county attorney's office felt that they could help the department move through this. And I think some of tonight's discussion or action is based on frustration that there seems to be a reluctance to carry out the will of the board. I'm like Mr. Perkins, feel that our priority needs to be on the children, and if this method is going to help that, I am in favor of it. But at the same time, before we do rush into it, I'm going to make some queries to the commissioner's office and see just what it is I think about this, because I think that there's a lot to it.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Did you call on me, Kevin?
Yes, John, go ahead, please.
Well, I was wondering, I think some good questions have come up. The December 7th, moving of cases through family court, the perceived reluctance on the part of the commissioner to move forward with the contract with county attorney. But I'm wondering, Cindy, I believe, is on. Why don't we ask her? Why? I mean, I can tell you what I heard her say, but I think it's a lot better if we hear her say it herself. Let's ask her.
Is there any other board member that wishes to speak? So I think we'll just contain it to the board itself. We got 2 weeks. If she wants to make a presentation then. Mr. Sheridan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, find it interesting that before the 1980s, the county attorney's office did represent the Department of Social Services as their legal team. And now, look where we are now. We've got as general counsel, we got a senior attorney, we have 3 assistant social service attorneys, we got a paralegal, we got 9 support staff positions. And so I guess I'd have to say that, and that's why I'm supporting the resolution, because I believe it's a good management practice for the Commissioner of Social Services to concentrate her efforts with the growing number of cases that we've all seen lately, and to concentrate maybe on the management of the large workforce of the Department of Social Services that she handles. Recently, this board, including the last meeting, we've increased the staff in the caseworker category, as well as the other positions that have been requested for their rather large operation. And I was just at a meeting that on February 11th, where that I attended, and several other legislators, where there was a presentation by the commissioner and general counsel and staff there, who alleged that the failure to provide appropriate support to the department has resulted in a financial loss to the county. So I believe that this would be an appropriate time to move that ever expanding legal group out of the Department of Social Services and put it in to the county attorney's office, which is much more fitting for the management of the legal work that has to be done for the Department of Social Services, and let the commissioner concentrate on making that department work even more smoothly than what it is now. And I would like to also echo what other people have said tonight. I think that the commissioner is doing a great job. I don't know many people who would disagree with me on that, but I do think this is the time to move. And other counties have done it. We've done it for years and years and years before we ever went with the Department of Social Services being saddled with a huge legal team to deal with. So I'm going to support this resolution.
Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask what the basis was for your ignoring Mr. Burke's request?
Well, it's a board decision for one thing. The sound is not good. If Mrs. Ackerman would like to provide a written proposal or written reasons why, I think to the board, I think it would be better. I know that Mr. Denisha and I think others had complained that we couldn't understand her. And I think it's that part of it. And then the presentations have to be lengthy. So that would be my reasoning, Mr. Arquette. Mr. Minelli.
So just to clarify, so because the sound was a little bit difficult, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about a particular department, have we ever not allowed other departments to speak to resolutions that affect them? I'm just curious.
We could give it a try. If Cindy, Mrs. Ackerman, are you there? We can give it a try.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? So first, I just want to clarify, I think there have been a lot of questions about the support contract and kind of where we are with that. And I think that Ruth can speak to this as well, that Ruth and I just met again on March 15th. There seems to be some ongoing issues with getting the forms filled out that I need to have in order to have it sent to OTDA. I've talked about this numerous times. That has not changed. I have an ongoing list of my correspondences back and forth, and I have not even once neglected to provide what I've been asked to provide in regards to that contract. So I want to clarify that. If anybody would like to have my list of my correspondence, I am more than pleased to send that to them. I've been keeping track. I know it's been an issue, but I certainly can provide that at any time. In regards to the legal unit at social services, I can tell you that when I first got there, Dave Hager was there. Keith Massey's had just started the week before I got there. And there was already at that point over 101 TPRs that had yet to be, which is termination of parental rights, that had yet to be completed. The department had been without leadership, and everybody in that that building, not only that building, but the human services building where we have employees, the accounting building out back, were just all in shambles and just really didn't feel like they had any direction or any support. So with that, we worked really hard to get our legal team put together first, because we always talked about it like a funnel. Like we had so many children in care, but all of that paperwork, all of the processes that needed to go through the court system were like stuck in a tiny funnel, and we just couldn't get them through fast enough. So what we tried to do was expand that funnel by hiring the staff. Keep in mind that the support staff were already there. That hasn't changed. The attorneys really were attorneys that had been open positions there, with the addition of the appeals attorney that we did ask for. And at that time, and I think too, along with the time that we were looking for the added support attorney or a contract out, was because the courts had reopened in regards to support cases, and we had over 250 that had been pending, waiting to be pushed through by the courts. So with that, we looked at, okay, maybe we can go a year and look at contracting that out to get caught up, so that we don't have that now on top of all of the other issues that we were having within the legal department. So with that, we built a really good team. And when I say good team, I don't mean just the legal team that's been outstanding. I mean the relationship building between, the caseworkers in CPS, the caseworkers in foster preventive care. All of this took a lot of doing. It took a lot of teamwork. Everybody's been working cohesively. It takes a lot when it comes to, working with these families and children. Let me give you an example of what's happened, kind of a quick snapshot of what occurs in our legal department. There's been evenings where we've had to remove children from their home. So not only do the caseworkers go out after work at 6 or 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, but there's been times where they've had to literally bring them back to the building. And we've had our legal staff there, including David Haggard, who has looked for helping them find, after staying late at work, food, clothing, anything that they need to make these children happy. And I'm going to tell you, it takes a cohesive team to be able to do that and to feel really good about what they're doing. These staff are dedicated to what they're doing. There isn't 1 minute of the day that they don't pride themselves in what they do. This is what they do. And, it's probably one of the most stressful jobs you could ever think of, but you've got to have that camaraderie. You've got to have that teamwork, and you've got to have that passion, not only from the caseworkers that we have, but from the legal staff as well. And that's how I work. I am truly dedicated wherever I've worked to what I do. I believe in the mission, I believe in the values, and I believe in my staff. And I think expressing that to my staff, including my legal staff, and creating a cohesive team is what this county needs. I can't imagine that I could be wrong. I get great feedback from staff, and it's not just about me being a leader there. It's about the camaraderie that we've been able to, to bring to that building, to all the staff there. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions?
I had it muted.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, John, we were muted. Go ahead. Mr. Burke, please.
Yeah, Cindy, I've got a few questions that I've already asked you, but I guess maybe the big question, or two big questions. You just said very, very pleased with your legal staff, you're pleased with the relationships they've built. How has this resolution affected your department and your staff in general?
I can tell you that the morale in the building is extremely low. I even had another phone call today from another one of my management staff asking if they should be concerned about their position because they were part of the management team. I have caseworkers now that are very concerned about the relationships that they're going to have. Not only that, but the convenience, and I'm not saying that the county attorneys, don't have expertise, but we have attorneys that are extremely knowledgeable and dedicated to the families, and all of the information that they need to push these cases through. I think also is, is the dedication to commit to these caseworkers. I don't know, the morale's not good. And I know that, today even at, I'm home, but the 4 attorneys are extremely concerned, about what's going to happen with their families. We've actually had 2 of our attorneys that literally moved here to St. Lawrence County, excited to come into St. Lawrence County, taking these positions, had family here, had looked at coming back to St. Lawrence County. And I'll say that about our paralegal too, that, now they're like, now what? The apartment I rented, am I going to have to move? What about my family? We're due to have a child. A lot of angst within the building. And, I guess the main reason is why? Why? I could see if the department wasn't, doing good, or if the units weren't working well together. But, again, it's been such a short time. And I think that we've made strides in the short time that we've been here. And it seems like we would deserve, a little bit of, more time to kind of get our plan moving and get the ball rolling as we continue in a positive direction.
One follow-up. Could I have a follow-up?
Go ahead, John.
Cindy, I'm sure this has affected you personally, but if you could, there was a talk about it made it look like we created some management titles within the legal department, and we're now top heavy, and that this is going to increase the efficiency of them. My knowledge of it, and you could say it much better than me, Cindy, my knowledge is that our county went for months and months and months at 50% legal staff. And no matter what they tried to do to recruit and get new people, they couldn't do it. Then came Dave Haggard. Dave Haggard agreed to do it. Dave Haggard is the one that was able to secure the 3 additional attorneys. Mm-hmm. So I guess, I think the point needs to be made that, look, you want quality staff, you think you're going to pay entry level, you think you're going to get a seasoned attorney for $55,000, not going to happen. And the proof of that is it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Ruth and Johnny Dorothy tried for months. And Cindy, would you, again, 2 things, give us a little history on the county attorneys, and if you would, how has this affected you and your perception of the support you should be receiving?
So good question. I would say that I know, and I know on watching, when I first got there, David had talked about how, he recruited, Keith Massey, and then both of them went on to diligently look and search, and recruit the other additional staff. And we were extremely excited when we were able to get those staff, and with the backgrounds that they bring to the department. It's, and I think too with the student that we have that I've talked, before, who's now our paralegal waiting for, he's passed the bar. but that brings, he comes with his master's in social work. There's just, it's a great team. I think, and they do work long hours. And I think that, if we were to have them be county attorneys, my concern is, especially if they were relocated, I mean, the relationships that they've built, the time that they spend with the caseworkers, not only discussing cases, but, providing training and their expertise on, the permanency, reviews that we have to do. They talk about the cases. There's history here with these families now that these attorneys, have been working with. And I think as we try to move forward in our positive direction, that right now, dismantling the whole legal unit is going to be pretty detrimental to the progress that we've made already so far, with helping these children and families. I mean, we do have, we were outliers for a number of children in care. We have been for, this isn't new. This isn't something that just came about. It's been growing and growing for, since 2015, 16. So, I think that giving us that chance is something that we deserve, or they deserve.
Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Cindy. That was a tremendous presentation. And, what I'd like to do is appeal to the members of this board, members that may have just spoken to the priority being the children. If you couldn't see the compassion and hear the compassion in her voice, then you weren't listening. There's obviously an attempt to not allow her to speak, which is absolutely ridiculous when she's the commissioner of social services and we're discussing her department. What I ask is for the folks that don't have an agenda, the folks that do have a heart and care for these kids, that you do not support this resolution tonight. And I think that what Cindy just had to offer should tell the whole tale. This is not a time to follow the leader. It's not a time to be party line. This is a time right now to step forward and look out for these kids that are in dire straits out there. And we're so fortunate to have a commissioner like Cindy at the helm and the staff she's building, that to come up with this resolution is ridiculous. And I ask that you don't support it. Thank you.
Mr. Lightfoot.
There's been a lot said about the attorney positions. And I don't think that anywhere other than on the very resolution itself, that there was any talk of eliminating those positions. We're well aware of the fact that you need well aware of the fact that we need good attorneys in the social services department. Because you are eliminating a position of a social services attorney does not mean that those very social services or ex-social services attorneys would not be offered positions as deputy county attorneys and working in the same positions that they are now within the department with respect to the work that they are doing. So please don't read into things that have not been put out there on the table. That just gets people's gander up, and it really, at least from my way of thinking, is not an issue. I would think that there would certainly be consideration on the part of this board to making sure that the attorneys that are there, assuming that they are doing the work, assuming that they're doing a good job, and assuming that they could and would continue doing that, wouldn't be offered positions as deputy county attorneys. So, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Terminelli.
Thank you for clarifying that, although it does not ensure that those people would continue with us in those same roles. But that's regardless of the point. I guess I would look at our at our legal, at the titles there and say that we could, in essence, say that by approving this resolution, we would no longer have attorneys whose number one responsibility and obligation and 100% of their time would be to represent families and kids. And we would be missing out on that as the county that does have the highest number of kids in care, which is a huge concern.
Okay, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that there has been any statement saying that you don't have a dedicated staff. I don't believe that at all. And in my impression, I was assuming all these assistant county attorney positions would be offered to the positions that are being abolished because of the legalities of it. So I don't see any positions being lost. And the reason we're doing all this is to help all the children. So I would assume that all 100% of their time would still be going to legal DSS support, and that you would also have the deputy county attorney and the county attorney helping as well. And when some of your staff come up and ask you about their positions, I hope that you told them that you didn't see that them losing their positions, or you reached out to somebody to find out what actually was being meant by this, because I don't want to see anybody lose their position. I think we've been stating it very clearly, especially with this Families First. We keep creating positions. In my impression, we want to help all the kids that are there. We want to get them through the system faster so that they aren't being abused, so that they have a chance at a normal life. That's the way I'm seeing it. I don't see us taking anything away. I see us as giving more. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to wrap this up. Is there anybody that hasn't spoke? Suzanne, Ms. Fiacco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask Cindy what she needs from us.
Go ahead, Ms. Ackerman. You can make it brief, please.
I'm sorry, I must have missed a question because somehow I got kicked out. So I just got back on. I missed by the last minute.
Ms. Fiacco, could you repeat your question, please?
Yep. Can you just please let us know what we can do for you, what you need from us?
Well, that's a good question. We provided our presentation, about the number of children in care, the cost of the children in care, along with our stagnant, I think you could say, staffing as it relates to our number of caseloads. We asked just to be provided what we needed to do to work through this. I think we provided a nice three-year plan, help us, like we try to say now in social services, bend the curve. I don't really see how changing the legal unit right now is in any way, shape, or form conducive to our plan. Our main goal here is to work with the county and reduce the children in care. That's the goal of everybody in the building. There's nothing else behind that. There's nothing undermining that. It's just that we need that support to get through this. And I definitely think that with the staff that we have right now that are dedicated and working cohesively, that's what we need to do to be able to get through this. Okay. I've been told by numerous people that we have the team right in there to do that, and I truly believe that.
Anyone else that has not spoken? Seeing none, I'd like to move ahead with this. Let's do a roll call vote. Kelly, if you would, please.
Ridiculous. He knows you're in a meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Haggard,
Recuse.
Fiacco,
Is this to table it?
No, this is in favor of or against the resolution.
No.
Burke,
No.
Arquette,
No.
Terminelli,
No.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
No.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan, Mr. Sheridan,
You're muted, Bill.
Yes, yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
8 yes, 5 no, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Okay, so the resolution passes. Next up is our vacancy review committee.
There is only one position for highway. I believe Don is with us.
Mr. Chambers, are you with us? Okay, Mrs. Doyle, can you review this for us?
Oh, here it is.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
there we go.
I was here, just having problems turning the video on. My apologies. Yes, a bridge construction mechanic position is currently vacant. There's 5 of such positions in the department's budget, and this one is currently vacant. As this has worked down, it was started out by a vacancy with an area supervisor, and we've worked through the process through our system of promoting and individuals within the department and doing lateral transfers. So the net resultant is that we've had minus 1 person working through this with this resolution or this vacancy. That's September. Bridge construction mechanic does a lot of duties, for bridge, culvert, guide rail repair, and also does snow plowing duties in the wintertime. So it is critical to operations.
Anybody have a question for Mr. Chambers concerning this position? This would be somebody new or a promotion, Mr. Chambers? You have somebody in mind?
Well, we would. It would be posted within the department and likely filled within.
Okay, thank you. We'd like to move on, if there's no other questions for Mr. Chambers, to the county administrator's report. Mrs. Doyle.
Okay. First up is an update on COVID-19. 1 year ago this Thursday, St. Lawrence County had its first case of COVID-19. And 2 weeks later, on April 8th, was the first loss associated with COVID-19. Certainly you heard some data this evening that was encouraging from Jolene and Dr. Williams about how the cases are looking now. Tomorrow, as mentioned, there's a clinic to be held at the Dome. That will be from 9:15 to 5:15, and later in the week in Messina. Certainly encouraged that the 50-plus population is eligible now. And going forward, we continue to try and get the word out about what those comorbidities are, as well as the 60-plus and then the 65-plus are all eligible. Certainly all municipal employees, both county employees and town and village employees have been shared the information on a number of levels or a number of mediums to try and get as many folks as we can signed up. We continue to have open appointments. So if you're familiar with anyone who's looking for a vaccine, they should go on and look at their eligibility and certainly call either the COVID call center at Public Health or the Office for the Aging to get information about how they could qualify. This last weekend, as a region, Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence County all reduced our reporting to Monday through Friday. However, encouraging that there was cases of 5, 7, 5, and then today 6. Those numbers are starting to bring our average down. And listening to Jolene, a reduction of 5.8 cases in a weekly average with 1 day left is certainly positive. The reopening task force will gather on Friday to have one last meeting with Dana at 1 o'clock. I believe the Zoom link will be sent out or has been to get together with her one more time. Also, just wanted to mention that the partnerships we've had this last week with the Clifton Fine Hospital 40 doses were provided to them in a county partnership for the first time. And at St. Lawrence, 348 doses were administered. And as mentioned, please continue to share out the appointments that are available as well through the website. That we do now have posted a wait list option for folks. I know that some have an interest in the type of vaccine they receive or potentially when they're available to go. That's also in the COVID call center, and we'll share that out to make sure. Also, just to mention, testing capacity continues to be available. Caseloads, though we've been watching them as we talked about, have been reduced. Weekend hours at the clinics, I believe now they are open on Sundays, not Saturdays. And a few of the school districts continue their surveillance program with weekly testing on a volunteer basis. And we're certainly looking at the cases associated with all of that testing continuing. Any questions on COVID?
Ms. Sager.
A few months back, we purchased masks for all the school districts. Did we buy enough masks with the $30-some thousand we spent for every student in every school district?
We bought 16,900 masks, I believe. And yes, that was intended, or the numbers we received, I believe, from BOCES to provide for all schools. And they were delivered to all schools, I believe.
Who did the delivery, Ms. Doyle?
A variety of people, from youth advisory board members. I delivered some. If someone's missing theirs, we certainly, I think, have some we could get to them. A variety of folks. We still have some left. Yes.
Great.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
That sounds good. And speaking of our mask design department, the Youth Bureau, you heard a little bit from Legislator Terminelli last week about the trash dash that they're preparing for in April, working with a number of departments, Weights and Measures, Highway, to make this happen. And I believe it's their chair of their youth committee, and Nicole, correct me if I'm not right on this, Cole Siebels, is successful in achieving the Hershey's Heartwarming Young Heroes Global Youth Service Day grant in the amount of $250 to be used for the trash dash. So certainly something very exciting. I've got some information on it I'll share out with you. Huge reward, I think, for the work being put in to do something very different. And Highways obliging with, I think, 5 locations. We'll get those out to you because they'll certainly be in and around your districts. So that certainly if you have an interest in participating, we can make that happen as well. So if there's no objection, because the trash dash is taking place in April, I'd like to be able to add the resolution with the budget modification, if Legislator Terminelli is willing to sponsor, to be able to put this through so that the funds are available for that time in April.
Absolutely, I would support and recommend that. I spoke with Alexa Misbakis earlier today about the resolution and the timing of getting the grant and then getting the notification that we were awarded the grant happened so quickly that we weren't able to have the resolution on the agenda for tonight. So yes, I would definitely like to bring that resolution forward. And kudos to Cole for being a senior that applied for a competitive grant. That's quite an honor.
Absolutely. Great resume builder for sure. So we'll add that to the agenda for the board meeting. Information was sent out over the weekend with regard to the search for public health director. And a suggestion was made early on in Dana's providing notice that the group consider a recruiter as an option for replacing this position. So that's also been included as a part. Information's been gathered and shared with the search committee. Be on the lookout. Hopefully a doodle poll will go out in the morning to find out your availability. We'll get that group together with the members of the Board of Health to get that process underway and make a determination to the board with regard to the recruitment, if that's the decision of that committee. Would like to request a meeting of the Space Committee, if we could, now that the announcement has been made on the $6 million, of which only a small part is for renovations attached to our dispatch center. I think it would be great to get that group together to look at least the early sketches and look at the ripple effects associated with that. They have, the nice thing is with that grant, which was applied for, I believe, at the end of 2019, moved the start date up to March 1st of this year. So it actually is looking forward 5 years instead of us playing catch up on a 2-year application process. So I'll work with Legislator Chair Denisha of the Space Committee to get that done. Also, I believe that there's 2, at least right now, municipalities requesting county staff be in attendance. One is in Potsdam for the discussion on the outpost.
related to the action taken by this board this evening. And I believe that if there's no objection, Don Chambers will plan to attend to discuss and answer any questions that they may have. And then I did mention to you, just a reminder, Town and Village of Canton, they meet quarterly as with both municipalities. They've requested county staff attend. I will probably do that if there's no objection with regard to the Human Services Center and the setup related to the village's role in that setup.
When the web meeting take place.
I can get you the date. I'm not quite sure. It'll be either this quarter or next. Wanted to mention, if the board is not aware that the April board meeting, law enforcement and first responders who responded to the fatal fire in Pierpont in January of this year, there's been a request to honor the folks involved with that unfortunate fatality, and that will occur at the April board meeting. And then hopeful with 2 weeks before the April board meeting that we can get a couple of work sessions in on the legislative agenda. Many things have gotten, I think, in the way, but also the activities associated with timely reimbursement and a couple of issues we have from departments on the legislative agenda. So we could do a morning and afternoon session or afternoon evening. So any and all of you that want to participate, we could do that by Zoom. So I'll send those out and you can jump on for as little or as much time as you have. And my goal would be to bring that to the April board meeting. Any questions?
Don't see it.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Doyle. So let's move on to committee reports. First up is Cornell Cooperative Extension with Mr. Denisha.
Sure, I have nothing to report. Since my last report, we do have a meeting tomorrow evening. And we're hoping it's our last Zoom meeting. We're hoping in May we can meet in person.
Excellent, that's great news. Fish and Wildlife Management Board for Region 6, Ms. Curran.
So our last meeting was in May of 2020, so this encompasses September 2020 to present. They did some changes to parking lots at Indian Creek Center. They built a snowmobile bridge over County Route 15. They did a bunch of planting in the Young Forest Initiative. They had hunter education, the online courses start, had been online for a while, but numbers as of March 2nd is they had 125,502 registered hunter ed people, which is good. They put out an extensive deer management plan. I'm gonna send the link to it to Ruth and the actual PDF, so if anybody's interested, you can get that and read it. And they had kind of a bumper crop of trapping beaver and all the other little critters that they get, muskrat, meat, and just because people had nothing else to do but go to the great outdoors. And a record rendering of bears this season.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Curran. Ms. Terminelli for Fisheries Advisory Board.
We have not had a meeting.
Did either you or Ms. Curran reach out to that name I had? Was it Sally Sheldon about the milfoil?
I
You know,
did
in their
not.
last. Okay.
Yep, no, I remember and I wrote down the name. I did not reach out. Actually, our newest, one of our newest board members was a DEC agent in Vermont. So I actually asked him at the last meeting if he was familiar with her. I wanted to wait and see if he had any knowledge before I reached out.
I believe she's the individual is a professor at Middlebury.
Yes, I have that written down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Governor Fair Board, Mr. Smithers.
I don't have anything new. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 6th.
Okay, so let's move right on, Mr. Smithers, to the Highway Solid Waste Committee.
I haven't met since my last report. Mr. Chambers did a great job of his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smithers. Mr. Reagan for the Industrial Development Agency.
I don't have anything new to report. The IDA will meet this week.
Okay, that's great. Recreational Trails Advisory Board, Mr. Arquette and Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rec Trails Board met this last Tuesday, in which the topic of discussion was the local law that we're about to take a look at under old and new business. A number of concerns and ideas were raised throughout that meeting, which will lead me, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it's actually I'll be discussing it anyway. What I'll be looking to do with the adopting of the proposed law under old and new business, per the Recreational Trails Advisory Board, I'll be looking for support for this resolution this evening, only so that we can continue to have the public hearing that we approved 2 committee meetings ago, in which will be a great informational gathering experience from the general public. And then on our full board meeting, I'll be looking to table this resolution that hopefully will get passed under old and new business, so that we can work with the Trails Board and some other user groups to make sure that the local law fits St. County. So that's the bulk. We had a fantastic snowmobile season. Snowmobile registrations were up 10,000 members, huge numbers. Getting ready for the spring reopening of the trail for the summer season in May, and a lot of volunteer work being done like always. So that's about what I have. Thank you. You're muted.
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Go ahead.
So, Mrs. Haggard, if you would, on the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a new thing here in St. Lawrence County. It's called medical tourism. The increased overnight stays in restaurants and retail spending, and visitation to the attractions like the Remington Museum, because of people coming up here to get their shots. I'm also aware of that somebody calling Potsdam to find out when they chartered their plane to come up here and get their shot, where they should stay, and whether a car service could pick them up. So, little new to the area. Abu Garcia, a leading fishing equipment brand, you may have read about this, named St. Lawrence River is the best place to fish in the country in their annual recognition last week. That's a big deal. This is great publicity for us on top of last year's recognition by bass as the #1 bass fishery in the nation. Very good to hear. A St. Lawrence statistics professor is recruited to engage his summer students in an analysis of the new tourism data. Brooke hopes to be able to include county occupancy tax information in this overall analysis. This will create models that will continue to build on for years. And as a part of the Seaway Region Market New York grant, St. Lawrence County will be hiring photographers, videographers, and to capture scenes and stories along the St. Lawrence River. This is very important to everyone in this room, particularly. If you'd like to be a model or share something for this promotion, please contact Brooke. You can have your picture taken. The St. Lawrence County Chamber had their annual membership meeting on March 11th. I'm sure you've all read that a presentation was made, the Chamber Appreciation Award to the St. Lawrence County Public Health Department. Other agenda items included the recognition of board member Krista Carroll and staff member Suzanne Cassidy, acceptance of new members, and information on the rural broadband study. People from Bank were there. Budget and director's report. The annual meeting can be viewed on the Chamber's channel on YouTube. There are lots of opportunities in our county through the Chamber to find out about businesses in transition. If you want to sell your business, go to www.northcountryopportunities.com. Ben Dixon is part of Small Communities, Big Opportunities, and he made a presentation on February 24th through the 27th regarding businesses in transition. You can see that there. Webinars for both Facebook shops for small businesses can be seen on the YouTube channel for the Chamber, as well as podcasting for small businesses. And that's it. Our next meeting is, I think, April 11th. I'm not sure about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Haggard. For soil and water, I believe we meet this Thursday. John, do you have anything to add?
No, no, you're right, Kevin. We meet this Thursday at 7 o'clock. So we'll have a report for next month.
Okay, thank you, John. So next up for old and new business. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Perkins.
I just wanted to ask Mrs. Haggard.
Yes.
It's great news with Bass and Abu Garcia naming us as #1 in the country. Has there been any contact from the chamber to anybody like, say, Bass Pro or Cabela's or any of those big outdoor sporting stores that might want to locate up here? That would be great with bringing all the people here. We give them the opportunity to purchase here as well.
I'm meeting with both Brooke and Ben on tomorrow or Thursday, and I will ask about that and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely include the Canadian market.
If the border ever opens.
It will.
Okay,
It's open.
alrighty.
Okay, so we do have a resolution in old and new business. And it is, the first one is adopting proposed local law for the year 2021. It is titled a local law reestablishing the St. Lawrence County multi-use recreational trail system and establishing a trail permitting process. Who would like to move that? Mr. Arquette, second by Mr. Perkins and Mr. Smithers. Discussion, Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I reported under the committee reports, there's a lot of desire to move this thing forward from the user groups across the county. But there were some reservations and some fine tuning that needs to be done on the local law per the recreational trails advisory boards and a few others. So if we tabled this tonight, then that would disallow the public hearing. So I'd like to get this passed tonight. We'll have the public hearings, which is prior to the full board meeting. And then I will be moving to table this at our full board to allow time to do just that, to fine tune the local law, because this is patterned off after Lewis County. And there are some things in and about it as we're moving forward that don't match up with St. Lawrence County. So that's what we're trying to do. So if you could please vote in support of this tonight, and then we'll move to table on our full board. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Arquette, basically is the controversy over the UTVs, correct?
There's a number. I wouldn't define, actually the true intent of this is to get the UTVs out there. There's been a study that's done that's saying that about 80% of the usership out there are UTVs, but there's a huge number of potential buyers of UTVs that they really need to make sure that they're legal out there. So this would certainly, it addresses that issue, a number of different issues, but to say that the UTV is the #1 issue that causing us to hold back a little bit and fine tune, I would say that's not. The trail fee is probably a bigger issue.
Okay, yeah, I apologize for using the word controversy. It's just a matter of concern. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Perkins?
Yeah, I think the intent of this with the permitting fee, right now it's county sponsored, taxpayer dollars. This should enable this to be self-sustained in perpetuity, take care of the management, maintenance. This is what we're hoping it's for. It certainly is, there's some things that we need to address, but I think we can. I think it's a great start right here, and it was one of the original intentions to do, and I urge everybody to vote in favor of this.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no more questions, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any other old or new business that needs to come before the board before we go into executive session? Seeing none, Ms. Curran?
There's a B here on our.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On our thing.
Okay, thank you. So the sales tax distribution options, and I believe this was brought up by Mr. Forsythe, who is not here, but I think his question was framed around the census. Now, the census was supposed to come out by April 1st. Now it's being delayed till September or something?
I believe so.
Excuse me?
End of September.
End of September.
So I can speak a little bit to what he was.
Ms. Curran, go ahead,
trying to put
please.
out there. What he's saying is because the census numbers are not going to be there until September, is it then fair to decide that just this one more year is enough? Or could Ogdensburg perhaps benefit from one more year to fully look at its place, and would it give it enough time to pass all the other little laws that it would need in order, even if it was going to decide that it had to preempt, would they in fact have enough time to pass laws through and get everything done in time to do it?
Okay. Does anyone else? Mr. Barclay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I correct in saying that Legislator Forsythe brought this resolution forward?
Mr. Arquette, it's not a resolution. He brought it up as a topic of discussion. Strictly on the terms or the change that the census data was not going to be released until the end of September. And he wondered how the city should react to that information.
Right. Thank you. I was just going to say it, if indeed that it was, we could table it, but it's not a resolution. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Haggard.
Brain freeze. Okay. I was wondering, Mr. Chair, if Mr. Reagan had anything to add, or if he's interested in filling this in. He seems to know a lot about the situation at home.
Well, I think the question as far as what's going to happen reconsider and give the city of Ogdensburg an additional year to prepare and for us to see what the census information turns out to be. I think that there's, concerns if the city and the county don't have an agreement in place. One of the options the city, would have available would be to not, I think the comptroller's office said that they would be entitled to the percentage of revenue based on their population. I think that a lot of people voted several months ago based on the notion that the towns and villages were going to be protected for several years. But if there is no agreement between the city and the county, then actually there is no, that resolution is only binding as long as the majority of this board binds itself. So I think, those were some of the issues that Mr. Forsythe wanted to and still wants to discuss. And I would ask the board to continue this discussion at our next meeting, so Mr. Forsythe can be here to make his points as well.
So Ms. Terminelli.
I was just going to say, and we missed the beginning of what Mr. Reagan said because there seemed to be some sound issue. But as I do recall, we did have a resolution or an amendment to a resolution that was going to extend it for a year so that we could wait for the census information out. And some of us did vote for it, but it ended up not getting passed by the majority of the board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It was
Okay.
a 2-year. It was a 2-year.
Well, the 1 year and the 2 year, the 1 year
We're
extension.
in the 1 year now.
The resolution in the past, the 2 year failed, and also the 1 year failed also.
Yes, there was
So
an amendment, yes.
So what I did when, this is a math problem. We all have the 2010 census and the 2019 calculation, which showed that the city was receiving pretty close to $3.9 million. And so I asked Dylan Soper, the assistant county administrator, to do the math based on if the city was in the same sharing arrangement as the towns and the villages, what their population would have to be to equal that 3.8 million based on 50% assessment, or 50% being your population and 50% being your assessed value. And the calculation was that the city of Augsburg would have to increase its population by 35,500 people to be getting the $3.8 million. Based on that, on the 50% on your population, 50% on your assessed value. We have the assessed value from the city, and it was from 2019. If it's not 2019, I think the actual was done in 2018. So the census numbers that we have are based on 2010 right now. So if Augsburg showed that their population had increased significantly, they would have to be 35,500 to get that share that they're receiving now. So I'm hoping that the city has moved ahead in their efforts to preempt. They made it clear, at least in the press, that they were going to do so. They would be remiss if they had not done so. Okay, I would entertain a motion. Ms. Curran.
Sorry. So in this, when both of those resolutions failed, one of the things that you said was, hey, I'd really like to wait for the census numbers. But now that the census numbers are going to be later, do you not think that perhaps?
Well, I think the example that I just showed you, the math.
Yeah.
So the math would be an additional 35,000 people.
But isn't that a working?
35,000 people?
Isn't that a working ratio in comparison to the population of other towns and villages?
So to increase the population.
Like, they went up 10, but this guy went down 9.
So the population of the total county is 111,000 right now. At least that's what we have. So I'm showing you that the population would have to increase by 35,500 to equal the share that they got in 2019, which I think is not logical. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session, and for what purposes?
These would be for litigation, personnel, for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and appointments.
Okay. Entertain a motion by Mr. Smithers to go into executive session. Second by Ms. Curran. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Second by Mr. Smithers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.